Number 53. The Little Bull Calf. Centers of years ago, when all the most part of the country were a wilderness place, there was a little boy lived in a poor bit of a poverty 115 house. And this boy's father gave him a dear little bull calf. The boy used to think the world of this bull calf, and his father gave him everything he wanted for it. Afterward that his father died, and his mother got married again, and this was a very vicious stepfather, and he couldn't abide this little boy. And at last he said, if the boy bring the bull calf home again, he were a-goin' to kill it. This father should be a-willin' to this there little boy, shouldn't he, my Samson? He used to gone out tentin' his bull calf every day with barley bread. And arter dat there was an old man comed to him, and we have a deal of thought who dat was, eh? And he direct the little boy, you a bull calf had better go away and seek you a for chance. So he wentsen, as fur as I can tell you tomorrow night 1:16 and he went up to a farmhouse and begged a crust of bread, and when he comed back he broked it in two, and guv halfen it to his little bull calf. And he wentsen to another house, and begs a bit of cheese crud, and when he comed back, he wants to gin halfen it to his bull calf. No, the little bull calf says, I'm a-goin' across this field into the wildwood wilderness country, where there'll be tigers, leopards, wolves, monkeys, and a fiery dragon. And I shall kill them every one except the fiery dragon, and he'll kill me. The Lord could make any animal speak those days. You know trees could speak once. Our blessed Lord he hid in the elden bush, and it telten him, and he says, you shall always stink, and so it always do. But the ivy let him hide into it, and he says, it should be green both winter and summer, 1:17. And this little boy did cry, you are sure, and he says, oh my little bull calf, I hope he won't kill you. Yes, he will, the little bull calf says. And you climb up that tree, and then no one can come anigh you but the monkeys, and if they come the cheese crud will ef you. And when I'm killed the dragon will go away for a bit. And you come down this tree, and skin me, and get my biggest gut out, and blow it up, and my gut will kill everything as you hit with it, and when that fiery dragon come, you hit it with my gut, and then cut its tongue out. We know there were fiery dragons those days, like George and his dragon in the Bible. But there, it aren't the same world now. The world is 2&D over sense, like you 2&D it over with a spade. In course he done as this bull calf telled him, and he climbed up the tree, and the monkeys climbed up the tree to him. And he belt the cheese crud in his hand, and he says, I'll squeeze you a heart like this flint stone. And the monkey cocked his eye, much to say, if you can squeeze a flint stone and mek the juice come outer it, you can squeeze me. And he never spoke, for a monkey's cunning 1:18 but down he went. And the little bull calf was fighting all these wild things on the ground, and the little boy was clappin' his hands up the tree and sayin', goin', my little bull calf. Well fit, my little bull calf. And he mastered everything barren the fiery dragon. And the fiery dragon killed the little bull calf. And he wentsen, and saw a young lady, a king's daughter, staked down by the hair of her head. They was wery savage that time of day kings to their daughters if they misbehaviored themselves, and she was put there for the fiery dragon to stray her. And he sat down with her several hours, and she says, now, my dear little boy, my time is come when I'm a-goin' to be worried, and you'll better go. And he says, no, he says, I can master it, and I won't go. She begged and prayed in him as ever she could to get him away, but he wouldn't go. And he could hear it comin' far enough, roarin' and doin'. And this dragon come spitting fire, with a tongue like a gret spurt, and you could hear it roarin' for milts, and this place we the king's daughter were staked down was his beat we he used to come. And when it comed, the little boy hit this gut about his face till he was dead, but the fiery dragon bited his front finger after him. Then the little boy cut the fiery dragon's tongue out, and he says to the young lady, I've done all that I can, I muse leave you. And you are sure she was sorry when he had to leave her, and she tied a diamant ring into his hair, and said goodbye to him. Now then, by, the old king comed up to the weary place where his daughter was staked by the hair of her head, mentin and doin, and expectant to see not a bit of his daughter, but the prince of the place where she was. And he was disprised, and he says to his daughter, How come you seft? Why, there was a little boy comed here and sef me, daddy. Then he untied her, and took her home to the palace, for you are sure he were glad, when his temper comed to him again. Well, he put it into all the papers to want to know who seft this gal, and ef the right man comed he were to marry her, and have his kingdom and all his estate. Well, there was gentlemen comed fun all in all parts of England, with their front fingers cut off, and all kinds of tongues, foreign tongues, and beasts' tongues, and wild animals' tongues. They cut all sorts of tongues out, and they went about shootin' things a purpose, but they never could find a dragon to shoot. There was gentlemen comin' every other day with tongues and diamant rings. But when they showed their tongues, it warn't the right one, and they got turned off. And this little ragged boy comed up a time or two wery desolated like. And she had an eye on him, and she looked at this boy, till her father got wery angry and turned this boy out. Daddy, she says, I've got a knowledge to that boy. You may say there was all kinds of king's sons comin' up showin' their parcels. And arter a time or two this boy comed up agin dressed a bit better. And the old king says, I see you've got an eye on this boy. And ef it is to be him, it has to be him. All the older gentlemen was fit to kill him, and they says, Pooh! Pooh! To end that boy out, it can't be him. But the old king says, Now, my boy, let's see what you got. Well, he showed the diamant ring, with her name into it, and hid a fiery dragon's tongue. Dordy! How these gentlemen were mesmerized when he showed his authority, and the king told him, You shall have my estate, and marry my daughter. And he got married to this here gal, and got all the old king's estate. And then the stepfather came and wanted to own him, but the young king didn't know such a man. A bullcalf helps twins in a Russian story summarized by Ralston, page 134. The squeezing of the cheese crud can be matched from the Slovak gypsy story of The Gypsy and the Dragon, number 22, p. 84, cf. also Han, 152 and 2. 211. For the slaying of a dragon with the aid of helpful animals, and so rescuing a princess, and for the recognition of the rescuer by means of the dragon's tongues, cf. Grimm's number 60, The Two Brothers, I. 244 to 264 and 418 to 422. That story must be known to the gypsies of Hungary, for we get a rude version of it in the latter half of Dr. Friedrich Muller's number 5, whose first half we have summarized on page 34. The hero here comes to a city deprived of its water by 12 dragons, who are also going to devour the king's daughter. He undertakes to rescue her, but falls asleep with his head on her knees. The 12 white dragons roar beneath the earth, and then emerge one by one from the fountain, but are torn in pieces by the hero's 12 wild animals, whose lives he has spared when hunting. Thereupon the water becomes plentiful, and the hero marries the princess. Her former lover, however, poisons him. The 12 animals find his grave, and dig him up. They go in quest of the healing herb. And the hare, whose eyes are always open, sees a snake with that herb in its mouth, robs it thereof, and is running away, but at the snake's request gives back a bit. They then resuscitate their master, who sends a challenge to the lover by the lion. The marriage is just about to come off, but the princess reads, weeps, and breaks off the match. In comes the hero, and having packed off the lover, remarries her. If they are not dead, they are still alive. CFR number 30, The Rich and the Poor Brother, pages 112 to 117, for stopping the water 119, number 29, Pretty Face, p. 111, for the snake leaf, and number 42, the dragon, page 143. None of these stories, however, offers more than analogues to The Little Bull Calf, whose humor as to the dragon's tongue is peculiarly its own. The tongue as the test of who killed the demon occurs in Kara and Guja, A. Campbell's Santal Folk Tales, 1891, pages 20-21. Chapter 8. Welsh Gypsy Stories. Number 54. Jack and his Golden Snuff-Box. Once upon a time there was an old man and an old woman, and they had one son, and they lived in a great forest. And their son never saw any other people in his life, but he knew that there was some more in the world besides his own father and mother, because he had lots of books, and he used to read every day about them. And when he read about some pretty young women, he used to go mad to see some of them. Till one day, when his father was out cutting wood, he told his mother that he wished to go away to look for his living in some other country, and to see some other people besides them too. And he said, I see nothing at all here but great trees around me, and if I stay here, maybe I shall go mad before I see anything. The young man's father was out all this time, when the conversation was going on between him and his poor old mother. The old woman begins by saying to her son before leaving, well, my poor boy, if you want to go, it's better for you to go, and God be with you. The old woman thought for the best when she said that. But stop a bit before you go. Which would you like best for me to make you, a little cake and to bless you, or a big cake and to curse you? Dear, said he, make me a big cake. Maybe I shall be hungry on the road. The old woman made the big cake, and she went on top of the house, and she cursed him as far as she could see him. He presently meets with his father, and the old man says to him, Where are you going, my poor boy? When the son told the father the same tale as he told his mother, Well, says his father, I'm sorry to see you going away, but if you've made your mind to go, it's better for you to go. The poor lad had not gone far, till his father called him back. When the old man drawed out of his pocket a golden snuff-box, and said to him, Here, take this little box, and put it in your pocket, and be sure not to open it till you are near your death. And away went poor Jack upon his road, and walked till he was tired and hungry, for he had eaten all his cake upon the road, and by this time night was upon him, as he could hardly see his way before him. He could see some light a long way before him, and he made up to it, and found the back door and knocked at it, till one of the maidservants came and asked him what he wanted. He said that night was on him, and he wanted to get some place to sleep. The maidservant called him in to the fire, and gave him plenty to eat, good meat and bread and beer, and as he was eating his refreshments by the fire, there came the young lady to look at him. And she loved him well, and he loved her. And the young lady ran to tell her father, and said there was a pretty young man in the back kitchen. And immediately the gentleman came to him, and questioned him, and asked what work he could do. He said, the silly fellow, that he could do anything. Jack meant that he could do any foolish bit of work, what would be wanted about the house. Well, says the gentleman to him, at 8 o'clock in the morning I must have a great lake and some of the largest man-of-war vessels sailing before my mansion, and one of the largest vessels must fire a royal salute. And the last round break the leg of the bed where my young daughter is sleeping on. And if you don't do that, you will have to forfeit your life. All right, said Jack. And away he went to his bed, and said his prayers quietly, and slept till it was near 8 o'clock, and he had hardly any time to think what he was to do, till all of a sudden he remembered about the little golden box that his father gave him. And he said to himself, well, I never was so near my death as I am now, and then he felt in his pocket, and drew the little box out. And when he opened it, there hopped out 3 little red men and asked Jack, What is your will with us? Well, said Jack, I want a great lake and some of the largest man-of-war vessels in the world before this mansion, and one of the largest vessels to fire a royal salute. And the last round to break one of the legs of the bed where this young lady is sleeping on. All right, said the little men, go to sleep. Jack had hardly time to bring the words out of his mouth, to tell the little men what to do, but what it struck 8 o'clock, when bang, bang went one of the largest man-of-war vessels. And it made Jack jump out of bed to look through the window. And I can assure you it was a wonderful sight for him to see, after being so long with his father and mother living in a wood. By this time Jack dressed himself, and said his prayers, and came down laughing, because he was proud, because the thing was done so well. The gentleman comes to him, and says to him, "Well, my young man, I must say that you are very clever indeed. Come and have some breakfast." And the gentleman tells him, "Now there are 2 more things you have to do, and then you shall have my daughter in marriage." Jack gets his breakfast, and has a good squint at the young lady, and also she at him. However, I must get on again with my dear little story. The other thing that the gentleman told him to do was to fell all the great trees for miles around by 8 o'clock in the morning. And, to make my long story short, it was done, and it pleased the gentleman well. The gentleman said to him, "The other thing you have to do, and it was the last thing, you must get me a great castle standing on 12 golden pillars. And there must come regiments of soldiers, and go through their drill. At 8 o'clock the commanding officer must say, 'Shoulder up, 120, all right,'" said Jack. When the third and last morning came and the 3 great feats were finished, when he had the young daughter in marriage. But, oh dear! There is worse to come yet. The gentleman now makes a large hunting party, and invites all the gentlemen around the country to it, and to see the castle as well. And by this time Jack has a beautiful horse and a scarlet dress to go with them. On that morning his valet, when putting Jack's clothes by, after changing them to go a-hunting, put his hand in one of Jack's waistcoat pockets and pulled out the little golden snuff-box, as poor Jack left behind in a mistake. And that man opened the little box, and there hopped the 3 little red men out, and asked him what he wanted with them. "Well," said the valet to them, "I want this castle to be moved from this place far and far across the sea." "All right," said the little red men to him, "do you wish to go with it?" "Yes," said he. "Well, get up," said they to him, and away they went, far and far over the great sea. Now the grand hunting party comes back, and the castle upon the 12 golden pillars disappeared, to the great disappointment of those gentlemen as did not see it before. That poor silly Jack is threatened by taking his beautiful young wife from him, for taking them in the way he did. But the gentleman is going to make an agreement with him, and he is to have a 12 months and a day to look for it. And off he goes with a good horse and money in his pocket. Now poor Jack goes in search of his missing castle, over hills, dales, valleys, and mountains, through woolly woods and sheep walks, further than I can tell you tonight or ever intend to tell you. 121 until at last he comes up to the place where lives the king of all the little mice in the world. There was one of the little mice on sentry at the front gate going up to the palace, and did try to stop Jack from going in. He asked the little mouse, "Where does the king live? I should like to see him." This one sent another with him to show him the place, and when the king saw him, he called him in. And the king questioned him, and asked him where he was going that way. Well, Jack told him all the truth, that he had lost the great castle, and was going to look for it, and he had a whole 12 months and a day to find it out. And Jack asked him whether he knew anything about it, and the king said, "No, but I am the king of all, the little mice in the world, and I will call them all up in the morning, and maybe they have seen something of it." Then Jack got a good meal and bed, and in the morning he and the king went on to the fields, and the king called all the mice together, and asked them whether they had seen the great beautiful castle standing on golden pillars. And all the little mice said, no, there was none of them had seen it. The old king said to him that he had 2 other brothers, one is the king of all the frogs, and my other brother, who is the oldest, he is the king of all the birds in the world. And if you go there, maybe they know something about it, the missing castle. The king said to him, "Leave your horse here with me till you come back, and take one of my best horses under you, and give this cake to my brother. He will know then who you got it from. Mind and tell him I am well, and should like dearly to see him." And then the king and Jack shook hands together. And when Jack was going through the gates, the little mouse asked him should he go with him. And Jack said to him, "No, I shall get myself into trouble with the king." And the little thing told him, "It will be better for you to have me go with you, maybe I shall do some good to you sometime without you knowing it. Jump up, then." And the little mouse ran up the horse's leg, and made it dance, and Jack put the mouse in his pocket. Now Jack, after wishing good morning to the king, and pocketing the little mouse which was on sentry, trudged on his way. And such a long way he had to go, and this was his first day. At last he found the place, and there was one of the frogs on sentry, and gun upon his shoulder, and did try to hinder Jack not to go in. And when Jack said to him that he wanted to see the king, he allowed him to pass, and Jack made up to the door. The king came out, and asked him his business, and Jack told him all from beginning to ending. "Well, well, come in." He gets good entertainment that night, and in the morning the king made a curious sound, and collected all the frogs in the world. And he asked them, did they know or see anything of a castle that stood upon 12 golden pillars? And they all made a curious sound, crow crow, crow crow, and said, no. Jack had to take another horse, and a cake to his brother which is the king of all the fowls of the air. And as Jack was going through the gates, the little frog which was on sentry asked John should he go with him. Jack refused him for a bit, but at last he told him to jump up, and Jack put him in his other waistcoat pocket. And away he went again on his great long journey. It was 3 times as long this time as it was the first day. However, he found the place, and there was a fine bird on sentry. And Jack passed him, and he never said a word to him. And he talked with the king, and told him everything, all about the castle. "Well," said the king to him, "you shall know in the morning from my birds whether they know anything or not." Jack put up his horse in the stable, and then went to bed, after having something to eat. And when he got up in the morning, the king and he went on to some fields, and there the king made some funny noise, and there came all the fowls that were in all the world. 122 And the king asked them, did they see the fine castle? And all the birds answered, no. "Well," said the king, "where is the great bird?" They had to wait, then, for a long time for Eagle to make his appearance, when at last he came all in a perspiration, after sending 2 little birds high up in the sky to whistle on him to make all the haste he possibly could. The king asked the great bird, did he see the great castle? And the bird said, yes, I came from there where it now is. "Well," says the king, "this young gentleman has lost it, and you must go with him back to it. But stop till you get a bit of something to eat first." They killed a thief, and sent the best part of it to feed the eagle on his journey over the seas, and had to carry Jack on his back. Now, when they came in sight of the castle, they did not know what to do to get the little golden box. Well, the little mouse said to them, "Leave me down, and I will get the little box for you." So the mouse stole himself in the castle, and had a hold of the box, and when he was coming down the stairs, fell it down, and very near being caught. He came running out with it, laughing his best. "Have you got it?" Jack said to him. He said, "Yes," and off they went back again, and left the castle behind. As they were all of them, Jack, Mouse, Frog, and Eagle, passing over the great sea, they fell to quarreling about which it was that got the little box, till down it slipped into the water. It was by them looking at it, and handing it from one hand to the other, that they dropped the little box in the bottom of the sea. "Well, well," said the frog, "I knew as I would have to do something. So you had better let me go down in the water." And they let him go, and he was down for 3 days and 3 nights, and up he comes, and shows his nose and little mouth out of the water. And all of them asked him, did he get it? And he told them, no. "Well, what are you doing there, then?" "Nothing at all," he said, "only I want my full breath," and the poor little frog went down the second time, and he was down for a day and a night, and up he brings it. And away they did go, after being there 4 days and nights and, after a long tug over seas and mountains, arrive at the old king's palace, who is the master of all the birds in the world. And the king is very proud to see them, and has a hearty welcome and a long conversation. Jack opens the little box, and told the little men to go back and to bring the castle here to them. "And all of you make as much haste back again as you possibly can." The 3 little men went off, and when they came near the castle, they were afraid to go to it, till the gentleman and lady and all the servants were gone out to some dance. And there was no one left behind there, only the cook and another maid with her. And it happened to be that a poor gypsy woman, knowing that the family was going from home, made her way to the castle to try to tell the cook's fortune for a bit of victuals, was there at the time. And the little red men asked her, which would she rather go or stop behind? And she said, I will go with you. And they told her to run upstairs quick. She was no sooner up and in one of the drawing rooms than there comes just in sight the gentleman and lady and all the servants. But it was too late. Off they went at full speed, and the gypsy woman laughing at them through the window, making motion for them to stop, but all to no purpose. They were 9 days on their journey, in which they did try to keep the Sunday holy, by one of the little men turned to be priest, the other the clerk, and third presided at the organ, and the 3 women were the singers, cook, housemaid, and gypsy woman, as they had a grand chapel in the castle already. Very remarkable, there was a discord made in the music, and one of the little men ran up one of the organ pipes to see where the bad sound came from. When he found out that it only happened to be that the 3 women were laughing at the little red man stretching his little legs full length on the bass pipes, also his 2 arms the same time, with his little red nightcap. What he never forgot to wear, and what they never witnessed before, could not help calling forth some good merriment while on the face of the deep. And, poor things! Through them not going on with what they begun with, they very near came to danger, as the castle was once very near sinking in the middle of the sea. At length, after merry journey, they come again to Jack and the king. The king was quite struck with the sight of the castle, and going up the golden stairs, wishing to see the inside, when the first one that attracted his attention was the poor gypsy woman. And he said to her, How are you, sister? She said to him, I am very well. How are you? Quite well, said he to her, come into my place, to have a talk with you, and see who you are, and who your people are. The old gypsy woman told him that some of her people were some of them from the Lovells, Stanleys, Lees, and I don't know all their names. The king and Jack was very much pleased with the gypsy woman's conversation, but poor Jack's time was drawing to a close of a 12 months and a day. And he, wishing to go home to his young wife, gave orders to the 3 little men to get ready by the next morning at 8 o'clock to be off to the next brother, and to stop there for one night. Also to proceed from there to the last or the youngest brother, the master of all the mice in the world, in such place where the castle shall be left under his care until it's sent for. Jack takes a farewell of the king, and thanks him very much for his hospitality, and tells him not to be surprised when he shall meet again in some other country. Away went Jack and his castle again, and stopped one night in that place. And away they went again to the 3rd place, and there left the castle under his care. As Jack had to leave the castle behind, he had to take to his own horse, which he left there when he first started. The king liked the gypsy woman well, and told her that he would like if she would stay there with him, and the gypsy woman did stay with him until she was sent for by Jack. Now poor Jack leaves his castle behind and faces towards home. And after having so much merriment with the 3 brothers every night, Jack became sleepy on horseback, and would have lost the road if it was not for the little men guiding him. At last he arrives, weary and tired, and they did not seem to receive him with any kindness whatever, because he did not find the stolen castle. And to make it worse, he was disappointed in not seeing his young and beautiful wife to come and meet him, through being hindered by her parents. But that did not stop long. Jack put full power on. Jack dispatched the little men off to bring the castle from there, and they soon got there, and the first one they seen outside gather sticks to put on the fire was the poor gypsy woman. And they did whistle 123 to her, when she turned around smartly and said to them, Doherty. Doherty. 124 How are you, comrades? Where do you come from, and where are you going? Well, to tell the truth, we are sent to take this castle from here. Do you wish to stop here or to come with us? I would like better to go with you than to stay here. Well, come on, my poor sister. Jack shook hands with the king, and returned many thanks for his kingly kindness. When, all of a sudden, the king, seeing the gypsy woman, which he fell in so much fancy with, and whom he so much liked, was going to detain the castle until such time he could get her out. But Jack, perceiving his intentions, and wanting the gypsy woman himself for a nurse, instructed the little men to spur up and put speed on. And off they went, and were not long before they reached their journey's end, when out comes the young wife to meet him with a fine lump of a young son. Now, to make my long story short, Jack, after completing what he did, and to make a finish for the poor broken-hearted gypsy woman, he has the loan of one of his father-in-law's largest man-of-wars, which is laying by anchor. And sends the 3 little men in search of her kinsfolk, so as they may be found, and to bring them to her. After long searching they are found and brought back, to the great joy of the woman and delight of his wife's people-in-law, for after a bit they became very fond of each other. When they came on land, Jack's people allowed them to camp on their ground near a beautiful river, and the gentlemen and ladies used to go and see for them every day. Jack and his wife had many children, and had some of the gypsy girls for nurses. And the little children were almost half gypsies, for the girls continually learning them our language. And the gentleman and the lady were delighted with them. And the last time I was there, I played my harp for them, and got to go again. This story, like the next, was first printed in my In Gypsy Tense, 1880, pages 201 to 214 and 299 to 317. Thence both have been reprinted, with additions and deletions of his own, by Mr. Joseph Jacobs in his English Fairy Tales, 1890, pp. 81 to 92, 236, and More English Fairy Tales, 1894, pages 132 to 145, 232 to 233. They are not English fairy tales at all, neither were they taken down from the mouths of the peasantry. Both were written out for me by the Welsh gypsy harper, John Roberts, for whom see the introduction. I still have his neatly written MSS. From one of which the second story of An Old King and His 3 Sons in England, was printed verbatim et literatim at Messrs. T. and Constables for the Gypsy Lore Journal, Volume 3. October 1891, pages 110 to 120. I insist upon this the more as it is all but unique to find the teller of a folk tale who can himself transcribe it. The story belongs to the Aladdin group, and according to Mr. Jacobs, the closest parallel to it, including the mice, is afforded by Carnoy in Nicolaide's Traditions populaires de Lac Minier, 1889, in A Tale from Lesbos, L'Anneau de Bronze, No. 3, pages 57 to 74. A much closer parallel, however, is afforded by Radislaw's 60 Slavonic Folk Tales, 1889, in the Croatian story of The Wonder-Working Lock, No. 54, pp. 284 to 289, with which compare a Poorish Bohemian variant, La Montre Enchantie, in Louis Ledger's Conte Slaves, 1882, No. 15, pages 129 to 137, Hans, von den Drei Dankbaren Thieren, No. 9, I. 109, and 2. 202, and 2 stories, Nos. 9 and 10, both called Le Serpent Reconnaissant, in Dozon's Conte Albanese, I. 881, pages 63 to 76, and 219 to 222, in the former of which the talisman is a snakestone, in the latter a tobacco box, of course, a mere coincidence. All these 4 stories offer analogies to our Romanian gypsy, Snake who became the king's son-in-law, No. 7, page 21. Grimm's No. 97, The Water of Life, 2. 50, 399, should also be compared, and Sir Bumble, in F. A. Steele's Wide Awake Stories, pages 5 to 16. The Little Cake and Blessing, or Big Cake and Curse, recurring in The 10 Rabbits, No. 64, comes also in The Red Etin, Chambers's Popular Rhymes of Scotland, page 90, in Campbell's West Highland Tales, Nos. 13, 16, and 17, and in Patrick Kennedy's Legendary Fictions of the Irish Celts, pages 5, 54. In the Bukowina Gypsy story, Made Over to the Devil, No. 34, the mother makes a cake for her departing son, but there is no word of curse or blessing. For many more variants, Arabic, Mongolian, Tamil, Greek, etc., of Aladdin, see Clouston's variants of Burton's Supplemental Arabian Nights, pages 564 to 575. The elements, he observes, of the tale are identical in all versions, Eastern and Western, a talisman by means of which its possessor can command unlimited wealth, etc. Its loss and the consequent disappearance of the magnificent palace erected by supernatural agents who are subservient to the owner of the talisman, and, finally, its recovery, together with the restoration of the palace to its original situation. The words apply strikingly to Jack and his golden snuff-box, of whose existence Mr. Clouston was ignorant when he wrote them. Lastly, this is a find since I began this note a marvelously close parallel to The Wonder-Working Lock and La Montre Enchantée, is offered by The Wonderful Ring, in F. Steele's Wide-Awake Stories from the Panjab and Kashmir, pages 196 to 208. Here the hero with his last 4 rupees buys a cat, dog, parrot, and snake, receives from Snake's grateful father a talismanic ring, builds by means of it a golden palace in the sea, and marries a princess. Has the ring stolen by a witch, who sleeps with it in her mouth, but recovers it, thanks to the grateful animals, who tickle the witch's nose with a rat's tail. Another Oriental version is The Charmed Ring, in Knowles's Folk Tales of Kashmir, pp. 20-28, of this story and its Croatian, Albanian, and other variants we get a fragment in Dr. Barbu Constantinescu's Romanian gypsy story of The Stolen Ox. Here a peasant and his 12 sons are starving. He goes begging, but no one will give him anything, so he steals an ox from a farmer. The farmer next morning goes to look after his cattle, misses the ox, and, going in search of it, comes on the boys in the road. "What are you doing there, boys?" "Just playing." "But last night you were roaring for hunger." "Yes, but my daddy went to a farm and stole an ox, and my daddy killed it." "He killed the ox, he did, and we ate half the ox, and half remained, and my daddy buried it in the earth, wrapped up in the hide." The farmer goes and demands payment of the peasant, who gives him one of his sons to serve him for 7 years. The lad serves the farmer faithfully, and at the end of his term sets off home. On his way he lights on a dragon, and in the snake's mouth was a stag. 9 years had that snake had the stag in his mouth, and been trying to swallow it, but could not because of the horns. Now that snake was a prince. And seeing the lad, whom God had sent his way, "Lad," said the snake, "relieve me of this stag's horns, for I've been going about 9 years with it in my mouth." So the lad broke off the horns, and the snake swallowed the stag. "My lad, tie me round your neck, and carry me to my father, for he doesn't know where I am." So he carried him to his father, and his father rewarded him. And I came away, and told the tale. Number 55. An old king and his 3 sons in England. Once upon a time there was an old king, who had 3 sons. And the old king fell very sick one time, and there was nothing at all could make him well but some golden apples from a far country. So the 3 brothers went on horseback to look for some of those apples to recover their father. The 3 brothers set off together, and when they come to some crossroads, they halted and refreshed themselves a bit. And there they agreed to meet on a certain time, and not one was to go home before the other. So Valentine took the right, and Oliver 125 went on straight, and poor Jack took the left. And, so as to make my long story short, I shall follow poor Jack, and leave the other 2 take their chance, for I don't think there was much good in them. Well, now, poor Jack rides off over hills, dales, valleys, and mountains, through woolly woods and sheep-walks, where the old chap never sounded his hollow bugle horn, further than I can tell you tonight, or ever I intend to tell you. 126. At last he came to some old house near a great forest, and there was some old man sitting out by the door, and his look was enough to frighten the devil. And the old man said to him, "Good morning, my king's son." "Good morning to you, old gentleman," was the answer by the young prince, and frightened out of his wits, but he did not like to give in. The old gentleman told him to dismount and to go in and have some refreshments, and to put his horse in the stable, such as it was. After going in, and Jack feeling much better after having something to eat, and after his long ride, began to ask the old gentleman how did he know that he was a king's son. "Oh dear," said the old man, "I knew that you was a king's son, and I knew what is your business better than what you do yourself. So you will have to stay here tonight, and when you are in bed, you mustn't be frightened when you hear something come to you. There will come all manner of snakes and frogs, and some will try to get into your eyes and into your mouth. And mind," the old man said, "if you stir the least bit, then you will turn into one of those things yourself." Poor Jack did not know what to make of this, but however, he ventured to go to bed, and just as he thought to have a bit sleep, here they came around him, but he never stirred one bit all night. "Well, my young son, how are you this morning?" "Oh, I am very well, thank you, but I did not have much rest." "Well, never mind that. You have got on very well so far, but you have a great deal to go through before you can have the golden apples to go to your father. So now you better come to have some breakfast before you start on your way to my other brother's house. Now you will have to leave your own horse here with me, until you come back here again to me, and to tell me everything about how you got on. After that out comes a fresh horse for the young prince." And the old man gave him a ball of yarn, and he flung it between the horse's 2 ears. And off he goes as fast as the wind, which the wind behind could not catch the wind before, until he came to his second oldest brother's house. When he rode up to the door, he had the same salute as he had from the first old man. But this one was much uglier than the first one. He had long grey hair, and his teeth was curling out of his mouth, and his finger and toe nails were not cut for many thousands of years. So I shall leave you to guess what sort of a looking being he was, but still his Romany speech was soft and nice, much different to his younger brother. He puts his horse in a much better stable, and calls him in, and gives him plenty to eat and drink, and lots of tobacco and brandy. And they have a bit of chat before they goes to bed. When the old man asks him many questions, "Well, my young son, I suppose that you are one of the king's children, and come to look for the golden apples to recover him, because he is sick?" "Jack, yes. I am the youngest of the 3 brothers, and I should like well to get them to go back with." "Old man, well, don't mind, my young son. I will send before you tonight to my oldest brother, when you go to bed, and I will say all to him what you want, and then he will not have much trouble to send you on to the place where you must go to get them. But you must mind tonight not to stir when you hear those things biting and stinging you, or else you will work great mischief to yourself." The young man went to bed, and beard all, as he did the first night, and got up the next morning well and hearty, and thought a good deal of the old man's Romany way the night before. After a good breakfast, and passing some few remarks, what a curious place that was, when the old man should say, "Yes," to him, "you will see a more curious place soon, and I hope I shall see you back here all right." When out comes another fresh horse, and a ball of yarn to throw between his ears. The old man tells him to jump up, and said to him that he has made it all right with his oldest brother to give him a quick reception, and not to delay any whatever, as you have a good deal to go through in a very short and quick time. He flung the ball, and off he goes as quick as lightning, and comes to the oldest brother's house. I forgot to tell you that the last old man told him not to be frightened at this one's looks. Well, to make my long story short, the old man received him very kindly, and told him that he long wished to see him, and that he would go through his work like a man, and return back here safe and sound. Now tonight I shall give you rest. There shall nothing come to disturb you, so as you may not feel sleepy tomorrow. And you must mind to get up middling early, for you've got to go and come all in the same day. For there will be no place for you to rest within thousands of miles of that place, and if there was, you would stand in great danger never to come from there in your own form. Now, my young prince, mind what I tell you. Tomorrow, when you go in sight of a very large castle, which will be surrounded with black water, the first thing you will do, you will tie your horse to a tree, and you will see 3 beautiful swans in sight. When you will say, "Swan, swan, carry me over for the name of the Griffin of the Greenwood," and the swans will swim you over to the castle. There will be 3 great entrances, before you go in. The first will be guarded by 4 great giants, and drawn swords in their hands, the second entrance lions and other things, and the other with fiery serpents and other things too frightful to mention. You will have to be there exactly at 1 o'clock, and mind and leave there precisely at 2, and not a moment later. When the swans carry you over to the castle, you will pass all these things, when they will be all fast asleep, but you must not notice any of them. When you go in, you will turn up to the right, you will see some grand rooms, then you will go downstairs and through the cooking kitchen, and through a door on your left you go into a garden, where you will find the apples you want for your father to get him well. After you fill your wallet, you make all the speed you possibly can, and call out for the swans to carry you over the same as before. After you get on your horse, should you hear any shouting or making any noise after you, be sure not to look back, as they will follow you for thousands of miles, but when the time will be up and you near my place, it will be all over. Well, now, my young man, I have told you all you have to do tomorrow, and mind, whatever you do, don't look about you when you see all those dreadful things. Keep a good heart, and make haste from there, and come back to me with all the speed you can. I should like to know how my 2 brothers were when you left them, and what they said about me. Well, to tell the truth, before I left London, my father was sick, and said I was to come here to look for the golden apples, for they were the only things would do him good. And when I came to your youngest brother, I could not understand him well, his speech was like the English gypsies and not like yours. 127 You speak the same as the Welsh gypsies, and so I understand your second brother well. He told me many things what to do before I came here. And I thought once that your youngest brother put me in the wrong bed, when he put all those snakes to bite me all night long, until he, i.e. the middle brother, told me, so it was to be, and said, so it is the same here, but said you had none in your beds, but said when I came to you I should find you a fine dear Romany old man. The old man, so, 'tis, my daddy. My youngest brother ran away when he was young with the English gypsies, and their speech is not the same as our speech. Well, let's take a drop more brandy and a little tobacco, and then let's go to bed. You need not fear. There are no snakes here. The young man went to bed, and had a good night's rest, and got up the next morning as fresh as newly caught trout. Breakfast being over, when out come the other horse, and, when saddling and fettling, the old man began to laugh, and told the young gentleman that if he saw a pretty young lady, not to stay with her too long, because she may waken. And then he would have to stay with her, or to be turned into one of those unearthly monsters, like those which he will have to pass by going into the castle. Ha! 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 You make me laugh that I can scarcely buckle the saddle straps. I think I shall make it all right, my uncle, if I sees a young lady there, you may depend. Well, my daddy, I shall see how you will get on. So he mounts his Arab steed, and off he goes like a shot out of a gun. At last he comes in sight of the castle. He ties his horse safe to a tree, and pulls out his watch. It was then 1:45, when he called out, Swan, Swan, carry me over, for the name of the old griffin of the greenwood. No sooner said than done. A swan under each side, and one in front, took him over in a crack. He got on his legs, and walked quietly by all those giants, lions, fiery serpents, and all manner of other frightful things too numerous to mention, while they were all fast asleep, and that only for the space of 1 hour. When into the castle he goes neck or nothing. Turning to the right, upstairs he runs, and enters into a very grand bedroom, and seen a beautiful princess lying full stretch on a beautiful gold bedstead, fast asleep. It will take me too long to describe the other beautiful things which was in the room at the time, so you will pardon me for going on, for there was no time to lose. He gazed on her beautiful form with admiration, and looked at her foot, and said, where there is a pretty foot, there must be a pretty leg. And he takes her garter off, and buckles it on his own leg, and he buckles his on hers. He also takes her gold watch and pocket handkerchief, and exchanges his for hers, after that ventures to give her a kiss, when she very near opened her eyes. Seeing the time short, off he runs downstairs, and passing through the cooking kitchen, through where he had to pass to go into the garden for the apples, he could see the cook all fours on her back on the middle of the floor, with the knife in one hand and the fork in the other. He found the apples out, and filled his wallet well, and by passing through the kitchen the cook did very near waken, and she did wink on him with one eye. He was obliged to make all the speed he possibly could, as the time was nearly up. He called out for the swans, and off they managed to take him over, but they found he was a little heavier than when he was going over before. No sooner than he had mounted his horse, he could hear a tremendous noise, and the enchantment was broke, and they tried to follow him, but all to no purpose. He was not long before he came to the oldest brother's house. And glad enough he was to see it, for the sight and the noise of all those things that were after him near frightened him to death. "Welcome, my daddy, I am proud to see you. Dismount and put the horse in the stable, and come in and have some refreshments. I know you are hungry after all you have gone through in that castle. And tell all what you did, and all what you saw there. There was other king's sons went by here to go to that castle, but they never came back alive, and you are the only one that ever broke the spell, for me to go from here. And now you must come with me, and a sword in your hand, and must cut my head off and must throw it in that well." The young prince dismounts, and puts the horse in the stable, and then goes in to have some refreshments, for I can assure you he wanted some. And after telling him everything that passed, which the old gentleman was very pleased to hear, they both went for a walk together, the young prince looking around and seeing the place all round him looking dreadful, also the old man. He could scarcely walk from his toenails curling up like ram's horns that had not been cut for many 100 years, and big long hair. And although his teeth was curling out of his mouth, he could speak the Romany language better than any other. They come to a well, and he gives the prince a sword, and tells him to cut the old man's head off, and to throw it in that well. The young man, through him being so kind to him, has to do it against his wish, but has to do it. No sooner he does it, and flings his head in the well, then up springs one of the finest young gentlemen you would wish to see, and instead of the old house and the frightful-looking place, it was changed into a beautiful hall and grounds. And they went back, and enjoyed themselves well, and had a good laugh about the castle, when he told him all about what had passed, especially when he told him about the cook winking on him and could not open the other eye. The young prince leaves this young gentleman in all his glory, and he tells the young prince before leaving that he will see him again before long. They have a jolly shake hands, and off he goes to the next oldest brother. And, to make my long story short, he has to serve the other two brothers the same as the first, and he has to take to his own horse to go home. Now the youngest brother there was a good deal of the English gypsy in him, and begun to ask him how things went on, and making inquiries and asking, "Did you see my two brothers?" "Yes." "How did they look?" "Oh. They looked very well. I liked them much. They told me many things what to do." "Well, did you go to the castle?" "Yes, my uncle." "And will you tell me what you see in there? Did you see the young lady?" "Yes, I saw her, and plenty other frightful things." "Did you hear any snake biting you in my oldest brother's bed?" "No, there were none there, I slept well." "You won't have to sleep in the same bed tonight. You will have to cut off my head in the morning." The young prince had a good night's rest, and changed all the appearance of the place by cutting his head off before he started in the morning, having a good breakfast, and supplying himself with a little brandy and a good lot of tobacco for the road before starting, for he had a very long way to go, and his horse had not the same speed as theirs had. A jolly shake hands, and tells him it's very probable that he shall see him again very soon when he will not be aware of it. This one's mansion was very pretty, and the country around it beautiful, after having his head cut off. And off he goes, over hills, dales, valleys, and mountains, and very near losing his apples again. I forgot to tell you that he gives some to each of those brothers before leaving. At last he arrives at the crossroads where he has to meet his brothers on the very day appointed. Coming up to the place, he sees no tracks of horses, and, being very tired, he lays himself down to sleep, by tying the horse to his leg, 128 and putting the apples under his head. When presently up comes the other brothers the same time to the minute, and found him fast asleep. And they would not waken him, but said one to another, Let's see what sort of apples he has got under his head. So they took and tasted them, and found they were different from theirs. They took and changed his apples for theirs, and hooked it off to London as fast as they could, and left the poor fellow sleeping. After a while he awoke, and, seeing the tracks of other horses, he mounted and off with him, not thinking anything about the apples being changed. He had still a long way to go by himself. And by the time he got near London he could hear all the bells in the town ringing, but did not know what was the matter until he rode up to the palace, when he came to know that his father was recovered by his brother's apples. When he got there, his two brothers went off to some sports for a while. And the king was very glad to see his youngest son, and was very anxious to taste his apples. And when he found that they were not good, and thought that they were more for poisoning him, he sent immediately for the head butcher to behead his youngest son, and was taken away there and then in a carriage. But instead of the butcher taking his head off, he took him to some forest not far from the town, because he had pity on him, and there left him to take his chance. When presently up comes a big hairy bear, limping upon 3 legs. And the prince, poor fellow, climbed up a tree, frightened of him, and the bear telling him to come down, that it's no use of him to stop there. With hard persuasion poor Jack comes down. And the bear speaks to him in Romany, and bids him to come here to me, I will not do you any harm. It's better for you to come with me and have some refreshments. I know that you are hungry all this time. The poor young prince says, No, I am not very hungry, but I was very frightened when I saw you coming to me first, when I had no place to run away from you. The bear said, I was also afraid of you when I saw that gentleman setting you down from that carriage. I thought you would have some guns with you, and that you would not mind killing me if you would see me. But when I saw the gentleman going away with the carriage, and leaving you behind by yourself, I made bold to come to you, to see who you was, and now I know who you are very well. Isn't you the king's youngest son? I seen you and your brothers and lots of other gentlemen in this wood many times. Now, before we go from here, I must tell you that I am a gypsy in disguise, and I shall take you where we are stopping at. The young prince up and tells him everything from first to last, how he started in search of the apples, and about the 3 old men, and about the castle, and how he was served at last by his father after he came home. And instead of the butcher to take his head off, he was kind enough to leave him to have his life, and to take his chance in the forest, live or die, and here I am now, under your protection. The bear tells him, Come on, my brother. There shall be no harm come to you as long as you are with me. So he takes him up to the tents, and when they sees them coming, the girls begin to laugh, and says, Here is our Jubal coming with a young gentleman. When he advanced nearer the tents, they all begun to know that he was the young prince that had passed by that way many times before, and when Jubal went to change himself. He called most of them together in one tent, and tells them everything all about him, and tells them to be kind to him. And so they were, for there was nothing that he desired but what he had, the same as if he was, in the palace with his father and mother. He was allowed to romp and play with the girls, but no further, through his princely manners and the chastity of the girls hindered all bad thoughts. Him having lessons on the Welsh harp when a boy by some Welsh harper belonging to the Woods or Roberts family, who were Welsh gypsies of North Wales, made a little difference to his way of speaking to that of the London magpies. When they used to say, Dorda. This young gentleman talks as if he was 200 years old, we can't understand him. They used to have a deal of fun with him at night time, when telling his funny tales by the fire. Jubal, after he pulled off his hairy coat, was one of the smartest young men amongst them, and he stuck to be the young prince's closest companion. The young prince was always very sociable and merry, only when he would think of his gold watch, the one as he had from the young princess in that castle. The butcher allowed him to keep that for company, and did not like to take it from him, as it might come useful to him some time or another. And the poor fellow did not know where he lost it, being so much excited with everything. He passed off many happy days with the Stanleys and Greys in Epping Forest. But one day him and poor Jubal was strolling through the trees, when they came to the very same spot where they first met, and, accidentally looking up, he could see his watch hanging up in the tree which he had to climb when he first seen poor Jubal coming to him in the form of a bear. And cries out, "Jubal, Jubal, I can see my watch up in that tree." "Well, I am sure, how lucky," exclaimed poor Jubal, "shall I go and get it down?" "No, I'd rather go myself," said the young prince. Now when all this was going on, the young princess whom he changed those things with in that castle, seeing that one of the King of England's sons had been there by the changing of the watch 129 and other things, got herself ready with a large army, and sailed off for England. She left her army a little out of the town, and she went with her guard straight up to the palace to see the king, and also demanded to see his sons, and brought a fine young boy with her about 9 or 10 months old. They had a long conversation together about different things. At last she demands one of the sons to come before her, and the oldest comes, when she asks him, "Have you ever been at the castle of Melvales?" and he answers, "Yes." She throws down a pocket handkerchief, bids him to walk over that without stumbling. He goes to walk over it, and no sooner he put his foot on it he fell down and broke his leg. He was taken off immediately and made a prisoner of by her own guards. The other was called upon, and was asked the same questions, and had to go through the same performance, and he also was made a prisoner of. Now she says, "Have you not another son?" When the king began to shiver and shake and knock his 2 knees together that he could scarcely stand upon his legs, and did not know what to say to her, he was so much frightened. At last a thought came to him to send for his head butcher, and inquired of him particularly, "Did he behead his son, or is he alive?" "He is saved, O king." "Then bring him here immediately, or else I shall be done for." 2 of the fastest horses they had were put in the carriage, to go and look for the poor Welsh-harping prince. And when they got to the very same spot where they left him, that was the time when the prince was up the tree, getting his watch down, and poor Jubal standing a distance off. They cried out to him, "Did he see another young man in this wood?" Jubal, seeing such a nice carriage, thought something, and did not like to say no, and said yes, and pointed up the tree. And they told him to come down immediately, as there is a young lady in search of him with a young child. Ha! 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 Jubal, did you ever hear such a thing in all your life, my brother? Do you call him your brother? Well, he has been better to me than my brothers. Well, for his kindness he shall come to accompany you to the palace, and see how things will turn out. After they go to the palace, he has a good wash, and appears before the princess, when she asks him, or puts the question to him, had he ever been at the castle of Melvales, when he with a smile upon his face, and gives a graceful bow, and says, "My lady, walk over that handkerchief without stumbling." He walks over it many times, and dances upon it, and nothing happened to him. She said, with a proud and smiling air, "That is the young man." And out comes the exchanged things by both of them. Presently she orders a very large box to be brought in and to be opened, and out comes some of the most costly uniforms that was ever wore on an emperor's back. And when he dressed himself up, the king could scarcely look upon him from the dazzling of the gold and diamonds on his coat and other things. He orders his 2 brothers to be in confinement for a period of time. And before the princess demands him to go with her to her own country, she pays a visit to the gypsies' camp, and she makes them some very handsome presents for being so kind to the young prince. And she gives Jubal an invitation to go with them, which he accepts, also one of the girls for a nurse. Wishes them a hearty farewell for a time, promising to see them again in some little time to come, by saying, "Cheer up, comrades, I'm a Romany myself, I should like to see you in my country." They go back to the king and bids farewell, and tells him not to be so hasty another time to order people to be beheaded 130 before having a proper cause for it. Off they go with all their army with them. But while the soldiers were striking their tents, he bethought himself of his Welsh harp, and had it sent for immediately to take with him in a beautiful wooden case. After they went over, they called to see each of those 3 brothers whom the prince had to stay with when he was on his way to the castle of Melvales, and I can assure you, when they all got together, they had a very merry time of it. The last time I seen him, I play upon the prince's harp, and he told me he should like to see me again in North Wales. Ha! 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 I am glad that I have come to the finish. I ought to have a drop of Scotch ale for telling all those lies. As I said in my notes to number 54, Mr. Joseph Jacobs has also reprinted this story, with alterations, e.g. of head butcher to headsman, additions, and omissions of his own. Especially has he deleted every mention of gypsies, whilst leaving in references to tents, camp, etc., which thus appear rather à propos de bottes. Such tampering with folk tales reminds one somehow of your restoring architect, called in about an old church. Yes, he pronounces, that window is late perpendicular, so we'll have to come out, and we'll put in an early English one according to the original design. Not that he knows the original design, but he pleases his dupes, some there be, however, that curse. But Grimm, Mr. Jacobs pleads, rewrote his fairy tales. Maybe he did, but every folklorist is not a Grimm. After this, Mr. Jacobs remarks that the tale is scarcely a good example for Mr. Hindes Groome's contention, in Transactions Folklore Congress, for the diffusion of all folk tales by means of gypsies as colporteurs. This is merely a matter of evidence, and of evidence there is singularly little, though it is indeed curious that one of Campbell's best equipped informants should turn out to be a gypsy. Even this fact, however, is not too well substantiated. As I have shown in my introduction, I have never made such a contention. There, too, I have told all I know about Campbell's informant. Mr. Jacobs, perhaps, may know more. But his oracular judgment, that this story is a poor example for my real contention, that is what staggers me, unbacked though it be by one tittle of counter-evidence. The following is all I can adduce in self-vindication. My friend Mr. Sampson has got from Matthew Wood another Welsh gypsy version, called I Valen Calo Pani, the bottle of black water. This, he writes, is a variant of your King and his Three Sons, with which it agrees in most particulars, except of course Robert's own picturesque little touches, and that a bottle of black water takes the place of the 3 golden apples. Then, what I could not know when I published in Gypsy Tense, 1880, there is a closely parallel non-gypsy variant in Professor Theodore Vernelken's In the Land of Marvels, ENG Trans. 1884, number 52, pages 304-9 and 360. It is called The Accursed Garden, and comes from St. Pölten in Lower Austria. Here is a summary. A king has 3 sons, the youngest the handsomest. He falls sick, and learns he can only get better by eating a fruit from the accursed garden. The brothers set out one after the other, the 2 eldest lose all their money gaming in an inn, and are put in jail, cf. number 49, page 184. The youngest son comes to a hermit's in a great forest, inquires the way to the accursed garden, and gets a red ball, which, flung before him, will show the way. He next comes to a black dog, and sleeps 3 nights with him, then to a red dog, lastly to a white maiden. Before reaching the mountain on whose top is the garden he ties his horse to a fig tree. He has to enter the garden at 11, and leave before noon. In a castle in the midst of the garden he finds a sleeping lady, writes down his name and address, departs and is pursued by devouring beasts. Returning to the white maiden, he is desired by her to divide a grape into 4 parts, and to cast a part into each corner of her dwelling. Immediately it became a splendid palace. The red and black dogs are likewise changed into princes, and the hermit into a king. The prince comes up as his brothers are going to be hanged, buys them off, is robbed by them in the night of his fruit, receiving in its stead a poison one, and then is thrown into a valley. The late hermit discovers and revives him, but the king his father, finding his fruit is poisoned, orders him to be shot. But the servant spares him. And the young lady, arriving with a great army, proclaims that if the prince who fetched the fruit be not produced she will besiege the city. Then the servant tells how he spared the prince, who is sought for and brought to the king. He accurately describes the garden, and marries the princess. This version is markedly inferior to our Welsh gypsy one, still, I know in all folklore a few closer parallels. And the two versions are separated by over 4 centuries and by more than 1,000 miles. The ball of yarn on page 221 recurs in 2 other Welsh gypsy stories, The Black Dog of the Wild Forest, you follow this ball of worsted. Now it will take you right straight to a river, and the Green Man of Noman's land, she, gives him a ball of thread to place between the horse's ears. In Dasent's Norse tale of The Golden Palace that hung in the air, Tales from the Field, page 291, an old hag gives the hero a grey ball of wool, which he had only to roll on before him and he would come to whatever place he wished. In Addie's Household Tales, page 50, there is a curious but poorly told story from Wensley in Derbyshire, The Little Red Hairy Man, a variant of Our Mayor's Son, number 20, and Twopence-Halfpenny, number 58. Here the little man throws a small copper ball on the ground, and it rolled away, and Jack followed it until it came to a castle made of copper, and flew against the door. So with a silver ball and a silver castle, and a golden ball and a golden castle. On which it is just worth remarking that underground castles of copper, silver, and gold occur in number 58, p. 245, in a story told to Campbell of Islay by a London gypsy, Tales of the West Highlands, 4. 143, and in Ralston's The Norka, pages 75 to 76. In Radislaw's Hungarian-Slovenish story of The Three Lemons, p. 63,131 we find castles of lead, silver, and gold, and at each the hero gets dumplings of the same metals, which he afterwards throws before him, when they fix themselves on the glass hill, and permit him to ascend, cf. 2, Our Three Dragons, pp. 152-4, Irish Folktale in Folklore Journal, I. 318, and Folklore for December 1890, page 495. In Hans, Felix Zellaby, number 73, 2. 69, the heroine has to follow 3 golden apples, and in The Wicked Queens, J. H. Knowles's Folktales of Kashmir, page 401, a jogi gives a boy a pebble, telling him to throw it on before and to follow its leadings. The well-known Sleeping Beauty recurs in 2 other gypsy stories, the Moravian one of The Princess and the Forester's Son, page 147, which offers marked analogies to John Roberts's tale, and that from the Bukowina, The Winged Hero, pp. 100-104, which is very Oriental in character. Whether she was ever familiar to English or Scottish folklore I do not know, but Scott in chapter 26 of The Antiquary alludes to her. For the 3 Helpful Brothers, CFF.A. Steele's Wide Awake Stories, pages 35-36, and for the prohibition not to look about, behind, Maeve Stokes's Indian Fairy Tales, page 140. Number 56. The 5 Trades. Once there were a sailor and other 4 men. One was a smith, and the other was a soldier and a tailor, and the last was an innkeeper. The sailor asked the smith to come upon the sea. The smith said, "No, I must go and do some work." "What is your work?" "To heat iron," says the smith, "and make it into shoes for horses." The sailor asked the other 3 to come on board his ship. The soldier said he must go to make facings and marchings, and the tailor said, "I must go and make clothes to keep you warm." And the innkeeper said, "I am going to make beer to make you drunk, that you may all of you go to the devil." That's all of that. This little temperance apologue by a naughty toddler is one of the very few gypsy stories with a moral. Number 57. Ashypelt. Once there was an old man and an old woman livin' in the forest o' Dean. They had 12 sons, and there was one son called Ashypelt. He was the youngest son, and they didn't never think but very little o' Ashypelt, as was always used to be the s-hole under the fire, and the brothers used to spit on him and laugh at him and make fun of him and that. He never spoke, didn't Ashypelt, nor hear nothin'. These 11 brothers they was nearly always felling timber, and they used to go off till Saturdays for a week. They used to do that very reg'lar, and were bringing a lot of money in for the old man and the old woman. So the old woman says one day, well, John, I says, I think you and me has got enough money now to live on which will keep we all the days of our life. And we'll tell him tonight it was on a Saturday, they was comin' home again, they was comin' home with all the week's wages we'll say to em as the press gang has been after em, as they've got to ear as we've got 11 very fine sons. And they wants to make soldiers of em. So I'll begin cryin', when they comes tonight, and I'll say to em, oh my very dear sons, the press gang's been after yous, today. They want yous to go for soldiers, and the best you can do, my dear children, the old woman was cryin' very much, makin' herself so, is to go to sleep in the barn. And we'll put em to sleep in the barn, and give em their week's victuals with em, what they used to take reg'lar, says the old woman to the old man. We can soon put Ashypelt out o' the road. He was listenin' all the time, the poor Ashypelt, listenin' what the old woman was sayin'. Soon as we've put the 11 sons in the barn we'll set fire to em about 12 o'clock and burn em, that's the best way to take it out of em. We'll burn em, she says. Poor Ashypelt gets up out o' the s-hole. This was about the hour of 11, they was sittin' up till 12 to set the barn afire. He goes up to the barn, and throws his brothers up one after another neck and croppin', they was goin' to kill Iman, their week's victuals. Who are you? They says. I am your brother Ashypelt, he says, I am your brother Ashypelt. So one looks at him, and another looks at him, to find a certain mark as they know to him. They went to kill poor Ashypelt for throwing them up. He says, my father and mother is goin' to set you afire, all the lot o' you, that's the reason they put you in the barn. And, come with me up on that back edge, and, you'll see the barn goin' afire directly, says Ashypelt. They sat on this high edge till 12 o'clock come, and, they was lookin' out, and, they seen the old woman and, the old man go with a lantern, and, puttin' a light to the barn and, all the straw what was in it. So they thanked Ashypelt very much for savin' their lives, but they didn't injure their father or mother, but they all started to go on the road together. They comes to 12 crossroads. And poor Ashypelt, never bein' out o' the s-hole before, took very sleepy, through bein' a very ot day. So one brother says to the other, we'll all take a road to ourselves. Each one will take a road, and, in 12 months and a day we'll all meet again. So poor Ashypelt the son overcame him, and, never bein' out o' the s-hole, fell asleep. And each brother left a mark on the road which way they went, for him to go, is road to himself. When poor Ashypelt wakened up, began lookin' round him and rubbin' his eyes. They left him a very old nasty lane to go up, an old nasty lane with the mud up to your knees. Poor Ashypelt bein' very weak, he got fast several times goin' up this old lane, and tumbled down in the mud. And the edges was growed very high with so meetin' together, and the briars was scratching poor Ashypelt's eyes very near out, as was goin' up this old lane. Travels on, over high dales and lofty mountains, where the cock never crowed and the divil never sounded his bugle horn. It'll last till tomorrow night, but I don't mean to have tell you so long. 132 But poor Ashypelt got benighted up this old lane. Used to fall asleep, bein' summertime, and very early in the mornin', come daylight, wakens up, and kept on the same old lane all the way he was goin'. Travels on till come to a castle and a new goose, where there was a man, and asked this man could give him a job. Says, yes, Ashypelt, I can give you a job, says. Says, what can you do? Ashypelt says, I can do everything as you try to put me to. Well, Ashypelt, says, I'll give you £50 to sleep into the castle all night, and a good suit clothes. Oh. Yes, says, I'll sleep there, said. So, says to Ashypelt, says, you shall have a good bag o' nuts to crack and plenty o' bacca to smoke, and a good fire to sit by, says. But allowed him no can o beer to drink, plenty o water, so as he wouldn't get trussecated. And happen about 11 o'clock at night, says, now Ashypelt, it is about the time you've got to come in along o me. So, takes Ashypelt with him about 11 o'clock to this castle. Opens the door, and says, there you are, go and take your seat, and sit down. Says, here is your bag o nuts, and plenty o bacca to smoke. So just now Ashypelt was sittin' down, and just about the hour o 12 could hear a lot o noise about the room. Looks around behind him at the door, and sees a man naked. So says, come up to the fire and warm you. You looks very cold. It was a spirit, you see. Wouldn't come up to the fire, so Ashypelt went and fetched him. Ashypelt says, will you have a smoke? Says, and takes and fills him a new pipe. Says, will you crack some nuts? So smoked all poor Ashypelt's bacca, and cracked all his nuts, and poor Ashypelt had none. But says, you are a very greedy fellow indeed, I must say, said, after a man bringing you up to warm you at the fire, and taking everything off him. Just about the hour o 2 o'clock away goes this man from him. So therefore Ashypelt sits contented down afore the fire to hisself. So next mornin', the master says to him at the hour o 6 o'clock, are you alive, Ashypelt? Oh. Yes, says to him, I am alive, sir. And there came a very rude man ere last night, and took all my bacca, and cracked all my nuts off me, says, for the kindness I done for him. Was naked, and I axed him to have a warm. Well, says to Ashypelt, come along and have some breakfast, Ashypelt. And takes him to the new ooze from the castle, to have some breakfast. Would you wish to stop another night, Ashypelt? Says, and I'll give you another 50 pounds. Oh. Yes, says Ashypelt, never seein' anythin', and never knowin' what spirits or ghostes was, bein' a lose in the s-hole. So all day Ashypelt went up and down the garden, and learnin' how to dig in the garden and one thing or another, till 11 o'clock came again the next night. Well, come, Ashypelt, my lad, said, it's time for you to go back to your room again now. So the next night gave him very near half pound o bacca to smoke and a bigger bag o nuts. So about the hour o 12 o'clock turns round to the door again, and there was 5 or 6 of these ghostes came in to him this time and spirits. So there was one stood up in the corner in his skeleton. There was 5 more runnin' up and down the room pittity-pat, pittity-pat. Come up to the fire, Ashypelt says, and warm yous. Yous looks very cold all runnin' about naked, said. Says, there's some bacca there and some pipes. Have a smoke apiece. So this poor fellow stood up in the corner. You come here, said Ashypelt, you looks very cold, you're nothin' but bones. But gave Ashypelt no answer. So Ashypelt comes up to him, to pull him out up to the fire, and appean to give him a bit of a touch round the neck somewhere under the jaw, I think it was as wouldn't come for him. This fellow tumbled all into pieces, in small bits pieces about half an inch, tumbled all into pieces when Ashypelt hit him. Now, Ashypelt, says one of them, if you don't put that fellow up again as you fun him, we'll rever you alive. Poor Ashypelt got fixing one little bone on top of another, and one little bone on top of another, but got tumblin' them down as quick as was fixing them very near. Well, fixed and fixed at last till it come very near 1 o'clock that was bein' with him, but got em together again. So away they all goes just about 2 o'clock and leaves him. And when come to look for the bacca, every morsel had gone, never had one pipeful. Well, says, they're a greedy lot oh, fellows, them is, says. They served me worse again tonight, says. So, comes and sits himself down completely by his own fire again. Next morning at the hour of 6 o'clock the master comes for him again. Are you alive, Ashypelt? Says. Oh. Yes, says, I'm alive. He says, did you hear anything last night? Yes, says Ashypelt, there come a lot oh, greedy fellows, and smoked all my bacca and cracked all my nuts off me. So, says, come on down, Ashypelt, and ave your breakfast. Takes him to the new goose to ave his breakfast. But after add his breakfast, now, Ashypelt, says, I will give you another 50 to stop another night. Well, poor Ashypelt, never even no money, said, yes, would do it. Well, took him, as usual, up and down the garden again next day with I'm, taking him up and down the garden till 11 o'clock come the next night. So now, Ashypelt, my boy, it's time for me to take you up to your room, says. I'll give you a little extra bacca tonight. I'll give you £1, and a bigger bag o' nuts altogether it might be a guano, bag o' nuts and £1 o' bacca. So fastened into the room before Ashypelt comes, and leaves him sittin' down comfortable to isself avin a bit o' a smoke o' is bacca. But heard one o' the terriblest noises ever heard in his life shoutin' blue wilful murders, but couldn't see nothin'. This was at the hour o' 12. Bangin' one of his doors wide open, in comes a man to him with his throat cut from here to there. Ashypelt axed him to come and ave a pipe o' bacca, and to ave a warm. Well, poor Ashypelt never seein' nothin', wasn't frightened a bit. So the man says to him, now, Ashypelt, my boy, I see you are not frightened. Come with me, and I'll show you where I lies. My brother has killed me, it's my brother what gives you this money to stop air. You come with me, Ashypelt, down these steps. He took him down steps, down steps, down steps. Ashypelt asked him how much further had to go, and it had been very dark goin' down these steps. Ashypelt couldn't see his way, but when got to the bottom there was a very fine light. Now, Ashypelt, says, come with me, says. I'm that man as you struck in the room and knocked all to pieces. Now, Ashypelt, I'll make you a gentleman for life if you'll do one thing for me. Come along oh me, says to Ashypelt. Then says, lift up that flag, says. No, sir, says Ashypelt, I can't lift it up, says to him, but lift it you. Put your hand down to it, and try to lift it up, said. Ashypelt done what told him, puttin' his hand down to lift the flag, and he draws the flag up. What was under that but a big pot o' gold spade guineas and that? So says, come along oh me, Ashypelt, says, on further, says. Says, rise that flag up, Ashypelt. Ashypelt doin' so, told him to rise one flag up, says, rise the other one, Ashypelt, next to it. Ashypelt rises the other one, and there this air skeleton was lyin' in the coffin. That's where was buried, his brother buried him there into the coffin. This was the older brother tell what the one was that was alive, that was dead. But they got Fallon out which would ave the castle. The next brother killed the old one, and buried him there. Now, says this man with his throat cut from here to there, Ashypelt, I want you to do me a favourite, and says, you'll never be troubled no more. You can sleep in that room all your lifetime, says, nothin' will ever trouble you no more. Now, in the mornin', says, when my brother comes for you, he'll ax you what sort o' night's rest you had. So you say, all right, only they smoked all my bacca and cracked all my nuts again. And the first town you get to, Ashypelt, and you leaves here, you make a report as he's killed his own brother. And when they calls for witnesses, Ashypelt, I'll repair into the hall with my throat cut from here to there. You can come back, Ashypelt, and take the castle, 'cause there's nobody takes the castle barren me and my brother. So Ashypelt goes to the next town as could meet with, and goes and makes a larm to a magistrate, and the magistrate sent some policemen with him back to fetch this gentleman, and Ashypelt goes with Hello. Says to Ashypelt, what brings you back there? Said. So the policeman got close to this man. For you, says, and catches out of him, they are come back for you, for killin' yourn brother, takin' him off back to the town again, and Ashypelt along with him, takin' him and tryin' him. When they were tryin' him, at the hour 12 the magistrate cries out for witnesses, and the man reappears with his throat cut from here to there, just as they cried out for witnesses. His brother got life 20 years. And died shortly after got life. Broke his hurt. Well, Ashypelt goes back to the castle and lives there, and got a servant or two with him into the castle. One day bethought hisself about his brothers where had to meet them. Gets a pair of orzas and a carriage, and buys 11 suits clothes, thinkin' upon his poor brothers. So drives ahead until comes to these 12 roads, where had to meet 12 months in a day. So was drivin' up to these 12 roads, and there they was all lyin' down. Hello. My men, says, what are you men all lyin' down for? Ashypelt bein' dressed up, lookin' gentlemen, they didn't know I'm. We're waitin' for a brother of ours by the name Ashypelt, they said. Would you know him if you would see him? Said. Oh. Yes, we would know him very well. 12 months and a day we had to meet on these roads. So says to I'm your brother Ashypelt, said to the one. So they looks at him. If you're our brother Ashypelt, show your arm, you have a mark on it what we know to. So they looks at this mark. Oh. It is my brother Ashypelt, they says, blessin' him and kissin' him and slobberin', and so on. So gives a suit clothes apiece, these 11 brothers, to put on. Now says, I think we'll go back and see the old woman and the old man, how they are gettin' on, from says Ashypelt to his brothers. And when we get nigh you 11 brothers stop behind, and I'll drive up to the little farm, and ax the old lady what came of her 11 sons what she had. So poor Ashypelt drives up to the ooze. Hello. My old lady, says, what's come of all the 11 sons as you had? Oh, says, they all went off for soldiers. So calls his 11 brothers up, and says, didn't you try to burn my 11 brothers in that barn? Says, when you set the barn alight, and told as the press gang soldiers was after So she says, no true no, she said. I tell you, sir, they give me a shilling for telling you that lie. The name Ashypelt, Scottish Ashypet, Irish Ashypelt, etc., cf. England, Dialect Dictionary, pp. 88I, must be of Teutonic origin akin to the familiar High German Askenbrattel, Cinderella, and the Norse Askfatt, boots. The form coming nearest to it is also the oldest known to me, the mystic, Johann Tauler, c. 1300-61, says, in the Medulla Animi, I thy stable boy and poor Askenbalts. See Grimm's Household Tales, I, 366-7. In another story told by Cornelius Price, The Black Dog of the Wild Forest, the hero is hidden by an old witch in the ash hole under the fire. In the Polish gypsy tale of A Foolish Brother and a Wonderful Bush, No. 45, that brother crouches over his stove, in Dasent's Tales from the Norse, Boots sits all his life in the ashes, pages 90, 232, 382, in Ralston's story Ivan Popyaloff, p. 66, from the Chernigov government, the third brother, a simpleton, for 12 whole years lay among the ashes from the stove, but then he arose and shook himself, so that 6 poods of ashes fell off from him. And in Ledger's Bohemian story, Conte Slaves, page 130, of La Montmorency, which is a variant of our number 54, the third brother, a fool, does nothing but begrime himself with the cinders from the stove. The idea, then, extends beyond the Teutonic area, but how the name Ashypelt has found its way to South Wales is past my telling. Compare Grimm's number 4, I, 11, the story of the youth who went forth to learn what fear was, with the variants on pp. 342 to 347, also a fragment from Calver, Derbyshire, The Boy Who Feared Nothing, in Addie's Household Tales. From a London tinker Campbell of Islay got a story of a cutler and a tinker who travel together, and sleep in an empty haunted house for a reward. They are beset by ghosts and spirits of murdered ladies and gentlemen, and the inferior, the tinker, shows most courage, and is the hero. He went into the cellar to draw beer, and there he found a little chap a-sittin' on a barrel with a red cap on, his head, and says he, Buzz. What's Buzz, says the tinker. Never you mind what's Buzz, says he. That's mine. Don't you go for to touch it, etc., 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 Tales of the West Highlands, Volume 1, page 47. And in Volume 2, page 276, Campbell gives a Gaelic story, The Tale of the Soldier, our number 74, which was told by a tinker. Number 58. Twopence-Halfpenny. There were 3 brothers. The 3 were going on the road to seek for work. Night came upon them. They knew not where to go to get lodgings, it was night. They were traveling through a wood on an old road. They saw a small light, and they came to a cottage. They were hungry and tired. The door was open. They saw a table with food upon it. Said the eldest brother, Go you in. I am not going in, go in yourself. Not I, indeed. You are 2 fools, said Jack. And in he went, and sat down at the table, and ate his bellyful. The other 2 watched him. They were afraid to enter the house. At last the other 2 went in, and sat down and ate. Now a little old woman comes. Said the old woman, I have seen no man here for many years. Whence came ye hither? We are seeking for work. I will find work for you tomorrow. They went to bed. Up they rose in the morning. And there was a great pot on the fire, and porridge and milk. That was the food they ate. Now the old woman tells the eldest brother to go into the barn to get the tools, and to go into the wood to fell the trees. He took off his coat. There he is doing the work. There came an old dwarf, and asked him who told him to fell the wood. He could not see this little man, so small was he. He looked under his feet, he saw him in the stubble. The old dwarf hit him and beat him, until he bled, and there he left him. Now the maid comes with his dinner. The girl went home and told the 2 other brothers to come and carry him home and put him to bed. In the morning the second brother goes to the wood. The eldest brother told him it was a little man who beat him, and the second brother laughed at him. He went off now down to the woods. Here is something that asks him who told him to fell the trees. He looked around him, he could see nothing. At last he saw him in the stubble. Be off, said he. The little stranger knocked him to pieces. The little maid came down to him with his dinner, and went home and told the 2 brothers to come and carry him home. The 2 brothers went down and brought him home. Jack laughed at them, I am going down tomorrow myself. In the morning he went down to the wood. Here he is felling the trees. He heard something. He looked beneath his feet. He saw the little man in the stubble. Jack kicked him. You had better keep quiet, said the little man. The dwarf hit him. Down went Jack, and the dwarf half killed him. There was Jack lying there now. The maid came with his dinner. Home went the maid, and told the two brothers to come and carry him home. No, said Jack, leave me here and go. The two brothers went home. Jack was watching him, and the little man crept under a great stone. Up got Jack now, and home he went, and told his two brothers to go into the stable and get out 4 horses. They took a strong rope, and the 3 went with the horses and fastened the rope round the stone. They took the horses, and pulled it up, and found a well there. Go you down, said one. Not I, said the other, I am not going down. I will go down, says Jack. Fasten this rope and let me down, and when you hear me say, pull up, pull me up, and when I say, let go, let me go. Now the two brothers fastened him and let him down. Down he went a very little way. The little man beat him. Pull me up. He goes down again. He forgets the word, let me down. He came into a beautiful country, and there he saw the old dwarf. The old dwarf spoke to him, since you have come into this country, Jack, I will tell you something now. The old man tells Jack what he is to do. You will find 3 castles. In the first one lives a giant with 2 heads, and, said the old dwarf, you must fight him. Take the old rusty sword. I will be there with you. I am afraid of him. Go on, and have no fear. I will be there with you. Here is Jack at the castle now. He knocked at the door. The servant maid came, and he asked for her master. He is at home. Do you wish to see him? Yes, said Jack, I want to fight with him. The maid went and told him to come out. Are you wanting something to eat? No, said Jack, come out, and I will fight with you. Come here and choose your sword. Jack chose the old rusty sword. Why do you take that old rusty sword? Take a bright one. Not I. This one will do for me. The twain went out before the door. Off went one head. Spare my life, Jack. I will give you all my money. No. He struck off the other head, he killed him. Now this was the copper castle, so they called it. Now Jack goes on to the next, the silver castle. A giant with 3 heads lived there. Jack chose the rusty sword, and struck 2 heads off. Don't kill me, Jack, let me live. I will give you the keys of my castle. Not I, said Jack. And off went the other head. Now Jack goes on to the next, the golden castle. And there was a giant with 4 heads. Have you come here to fight with me? Yes, says Jack. The giant told him to choose a sword, and he chose the old rusty sword. And out they went. Jack struck off 3 heads. Don't kill me, Jack. I will give you my keys. Yes, I will, said Jack, and off went the other head. Now all the castles, and the money and the 3 fair ladies in the 3 castles, were his. Off Jack goes now and the lady with him. He goes back to the silver castle, and takes that lady. He goes to the copper castle, and takes that lady. And the 4 went on and came to the place where Jack descended. The old dwarf was there waiting for him. Jack sent the 3 ladies up to his brothers. Now the old dwarf wanted meat. Jack went back to the castle, and cooked some meat for him. The old dwarf carried Jack up a bit, the old dwarf stopped. He wanted meat. Jack gave him meat. He went up a bit further, he stopped, he wanted meat. Jack gave him meat. He went up a bit higher. He wanted meat. Jack had none. Now he was a very little way from the surface. He knew not what to do. He drew his knife from his pocket, and cut a little meat off his leg, and gave it to the old dwarf. Up went Jack. 2 of the ladies and his 2 brothers had gone off. And the eldest brother had taken the fairest lady. And the second brother had taken the other lady, and they had left the ugly lady for Jack. Jack asked her where they had gone. The lady told him, and he hastened after them. He caught them by the church, they were going to be married. The fairest lady looked back, and saw Jack. "That one's mine," said Jack. Jack took and married her. He left the other lady for his eldest brother to marry. There was only the second brother now, and he took the ugly lady. There are the 3 brothers and the 3 ladies. Now they want to go down to the 3 castles. Jack told the old dwarf to carry them down. "I will carry you down, you must give me food as I come down." "Yes," said Jack, "I will give you plenty of food. I will take you down." He carried them all down. And the old dwarf went along with Jack. Jack put one brother and one lady in the copper castle, and the other brother in the silver castle. And Jack went to the golden castle. And Jack kept the old dwarf all his days. The old dwarf died, and at last Jack grew old himself. There. You've done me. A most interesting variant of our No. 20, the Bukowina Gypsy story of Mare's Son, and so of Grimm's Strong Hans and Koskin's Jean Delors. In one respect it is more perfect than Mare's Son, that during the upward flight the hero cuts a piece out of his leg, which piece by rights the dwarf should have kept and restored, cf. page 99. It is, however, contrary to every canon of the storyteller's art for the dwarf to prove helpful to the hero, and the brother's treachery, in cutting the rope, is omitted. For the castles of copper, silver, and gold see pages 233-4. One is left rather sorry for the ugly lady. Number 59. The Old Smith. The next 8 Welsh gypsy stories were told, like the last, in Romany, by Matthew Wood to Mr. Sampson, and the English summaries of them given here are by Mr. Sampson. An old smith lived on a hill with his wife and mother-in-law. He could only make plowshares. A boy comes, and wants his horse shod. The smith could not do it. The boy cuts the horse's legs off, stops the blood, and puts the legs on the fire, beats them on the anvil, and replaces them on the horse. He gives the smith a guinea, and goes away. The smith tries this with his mother-in-law's horse, but bungles it, the horse bleeds to death, and its legs are burnt to ashes. The boy comes again with 2 old women. "I want you to make them young again." The smith couldn't. The boy puts them on the fire, beats them on the anvil, and rejuvenates them. The smith tries it with his wife and mother-in-law, but burns them to ashes. He leaves his forge, and sets off in the snow and wind. The barefooted boy follows him. The smith wants to send him off. The boy tells him of a sick king in the next town, whom they will cure, the boy acting as the smith's servant. The butler admits them, and gives them plenty to eat and drink. The smith forgets all about the sick king, but the boy reminds him. They go up. The boy asks for a knife, pot, water, and spoon. He cuts the king's head off, and spits on his hand to stop the blood. He puts the head in the pot, boils it, lifts it out with the golden spoon, and replaces it on the king, who is cured. The king gives them a sack of gold. They take the road again. "All I want," says Barefoot, "is a pair of shoes." "I've little enough for myself," says the smith. The boy leaves him, and the smith goes on alone. Hearing of another sick king, he goes to cure him, but takes too much to drink, and boils his head all to ribbons, and lets him bleed to death. A knock comes to the door. The smith, frightened, refuses admittance. "Won't you open to little Barefoot?" The boy enters, and with much difficulty gets the head on again. The king is cured, and gives them 2 sacks of gold. The boy asks for shoes and gets them. The boy tells the smith of a gentleman who has a wizard 133 whom none can beat, let's go there. 3 sacks of gold to anyone who beats him. They enter. There was a bellows. The wizard blows, and blows up half the sea, the boy blows up a fish that drinks up all the wizard's water. The wizard blows up corn as it were rain, the boy blows up birds that eat the corn. The wizard blows up hundreds of rabbits. The boy blows up greyhounds that catch the rabbits. So they win the 3 sacks of gold. The smith hardly knows what to do with all his money. He builds a village and 3 taverns, and spends his time loafing round. An old woman comes and begs a night's lodging. He gives it her. She gives him 3 wishes. He wishes that whoever takes his hammer in his hand can't put it down again, that whoever sits on his chair can't get up again, and that whoever gets in his pocket can't get out again. One day, when money had run low, a man comes to the smith and asks will he sell himself. The smith sells himself for a bag of gold, the time to be up in 5 years. After 5 years the man returns. The smith gives him his hammer to hold, and goes off to his tavern. From inn to inn the man follows him, and, finding him in the 3rd inn, gives him 5 more years' freedom. The same thing happens with the chair. And the smith gets 5 more years from the old man, now called Beng, devil. The 3rd time the devil finds the smith in one of his taverns. The smith explains that he has called for drinks, and asks the devil to change himself into a sovereign in his, the smith's, pocket to pay for them. The devil does so. The smith returns home, and goes to bed. At night he hears a great uproar in his trousers pocket, gets up, puts them on the anvil, and hammers. The devil promises never to meddle with him in future if he will release him. The smith lets him go. Afterwards the smith dies, and goes to the devil's door and knocks. An imp of Satan comes out. Tell your father the smith is here. The little devil went and told his father. He will kill us all, said the devil, if we let him in. Here, take this wisp of straw, and light him upstairs to God. The little devil did so. The smith went to heaven. There he sat and played the harp. And there we shall all see him one day unless we go to the devil instead. Cf. Ralston's The Smith and the Demon, page 57, and The Pope with the Greedy Eyes, page 351, Dasent's The Mastersmith, Tales from the Norse, page 106, Clouston, 2. 409. A curious Negro version from Virginia, De New Han, plainly derived from a European source, which I published in the Athenaeum for August 10, 1887, page 215, and give here as an appendix. Reinhold Kohler's essay, Sankt Petrus, der Himmelspfortner, Aufsätze über Märchen und Volkslieder, pages 48-78, Leno de Bronze, in Carnoy in Nicolaides Traditions Populaires de Lac Minier, page 62, and Grimm's, Brother Lustig, number 81, I. 312, 440. With the last compare this sketch of a story, which M. Paul Bataillard got from Catalonian gypsies encamped near Paris in 1869, and which very closely resembles one of the Centonovelli Antiche, summarized by Crane, Italian Popular Tales, page 360. St. Peter travels with Christ as his servant, and they are often hard put to it for a livelihood. Christ sends St. Peter to find a sheep, and, bidding him cook it, goes to heal a sick person, who rewards him richly. Peter eats the sheep's liver and kidneys, and Christ, when he comes back, asks where the liver and kidneys are, for Jesus, who is God, knows everything. Peter replying that the sheep had none, at the end of their meal Christ divides into 3 heaps the large sum received from the farmer whom he has healed. For whom are these 3 heaps, asks Peter. The 2 first for each of us, Christ answers, and the 3rd for him who ate the liver and kidneys. That was me, says Peter. Very well, Christ answers, take my share as well. I return to my own. And then it is that Christ takes the cross, etc. You see, the narrator ended, that it was God Jesus who at the beginning of the world founded all the estates of men first doctors, for he healed for money and who taught the gypsies to beg and to go barefoot, whilst St. Peter instructed them how to deceive their like. In another Catalonian gypsy story, Christ sends St. Peter to a farm to get an omelette or some roasted eggs, and Peter returns with the omelette hidden in his hat, intending to keep it for himself. 2 other pseudo-Christian legends of Christ traveling with St. Peter were told to M. Bataillard by an Alsatian gypsy, but he had forgotten them. Letter of April 22, 1872. Ralston has a legend, page 346, of a gypsy who learns of God, through St. George, that his business is to cheat and to swear falsely, so opens business by stealing the saint's golden stirrup. Lastly, Dr. von Soa gives this confused but curious Slovak gypsy tale. Number 60. The Old Soldier. There was a very old soldier, he was 12 years in military service. Then the colonel asked him, "My good man, what do you want for having served me so many years here?" "Whatever you want I will give you, for you have served me well so many years. I will give you a beautiful white horse, and I will give you 3 big tobacco pipes, so that you'll smoke like a gentleman. I will give you 3 rolls for your journey. The whole company never served as well as you have served me. I left everything to you, you have performed every sentry. If I went home on furlough, I should weep bitterly. How can I leave you, my good comrades? Now I go home, shall never see you more, I have none but my God and good comrades. I was a good soldier, the sergeant over the entire company. The major has given me a beautiful white horse to go home on. Oh God, I am going. But I have not much money, only a little." When he had come into great forests, there came a beggar and begs of the soldier. He said to him, "Did the soldier, O God, what can I give you? I am, you see, a poor soldier, and I have far to go, yet my heart is not heavy. But, wait a bit, O beggar, I will give you a roll." Then he bade him farewell. Afterwards the same beggar came again to the soldier, and begs of him, "O my soldier, give me something, make me a present." "How can I make you a present, seeing I have given already to 4 beggars? But wait, here I'll give you these couple of kreutzers, to get a drink of brandy with." Well, he went further. Again a 3rd beggar met him, again that he begs of him. "My God," he said to him, "I am a poor soldier, I have no one but God and myself. I shall have no money, I shall have nothing for myself, I'm giving you everything. My God! What am I to do? I'm an old soldier, a poor man, and, being so poor, where shall I now get anything? I gave you everything, bread, money, and my white horse. Now I must tramp on alone on my old legs. No one ever will know that I was a soldier. But my golden God be with you, farewell." Then the beggar said to the soldier, "Old soldier, I permit you to ask whatever you will. For I am God." The soldier answered, "I want nothing but a stick that when I say, beat, will beat every one and fear nobody." God gave it him. "Tell me now, what do you want besides? Give me further a sack that if I say to a man, get in, he must forthwith get into it." "Good, but you still may ask for a 3rd gift. Only think well, so that God in your old days may succor you." "I want nothing but a sack that will let fall money when shaken." God gave him that too, and went off. The old soldier goes further, comes to a city, comes into an inn. There were many country folk and other people of all sorts. He sits down to table, and orders victuals and drink. Straightway the gentleman brought him something to eat. When he had eaten and drunk, he asks him to pay. He takes the sack, shakes it, golden pieces come tumbling out. He paid them all to the gentleman, and went away. The gentleman was right glad that he had given him all that money. He goes further, came into a vast forest. There were 24 robbers, they kept an inn there, and sold what one required. He went in, and orders victuals to eat and brandy to drink, forthwith they brought him brandy strong as iron. He drank, he got drunk. "Now pay." He takes the sack, and shook out golden pieces, and hands them over. He paid the robbers, but he did not know that they were robbers. When he had paid up, they marveled to see him shake a sack like that and the money come falling out. They took him, take the sack, and go into another room. There 4 of them held him down, whilst 2 shake the sack, the money came tumbling out to their heart's desire. They told their chief, "Seize the soldier, and kill him, and cut him in pieces," then they hung up his body like an ox on a peg. Let us leave them and come to the soldier. When he got to paradise, my golden god let him be, but not long. Do you, Peter, go to that old soldier, and ask him what he wants here. Good, Peter came. What are you wanting? I just want the peace of God. Ha! I'll ask God if he will let you stay here. Peter went to my God and asks him, God, that old soldier is wanting your peace. Go to the devils. Tell them all to lay hold of him, tear him in pieces, and put as much wood as possible beneath the pot, so as to roast him thoroughly. Well, they cooked him to shreds. But after all had to chuck him out, for he knocked them about so that he broke their bones. A second time my God sent death for him, and him too the old soldier thrashed. But now he is dead and rotten, and we are alive. This very confused story Professor Von Soa got from a gypsy lad, a Faxuna. Another gypsy, with whom he conversed about gypsy folk tales, said that it should be much longer, and told him in Slovak that, death refusing to repeat his visit, God at last finished the old soldier's existence by sending him so much vermin that he died. Number 61. The Dragon. A lord, his wife, and his daughter live at a great castle. A poor lad is engaged to mind the sheep. The daughter gives him bread and beer in a basket for lunch. The old lord explains that previous servants have always come back with one cow short. In the field a little man comes to Jack. Jack gives him as much as he can eat, and the little man gives Jack a plum. The little man explains that a giant in a neighboring castle steals a cow daily. He gives Jack a pennyworth of pins, and bids him put them in the giant's drink. Jack goes to the giant, and asks for work. The giant goes to get drinks, and Jack mixes up the pins in the giant's glass. The giant drinks, falls ill, and dies. Jack tells the little man how he has fared, and returns with the full tale of cows. The master is surprised. Presently his daughter comes in. She tells Jack that tomorrow she is to be killed by a dragon, and would like him to be there to see. Jack refuses, but gives the girl a plum, which she eats. Next morning she gives him his food, and off he goes. He shares it as before with the little man, who bids him take a key, unlock a large door, and take out a black horse and black clothes, with a sword he will find there. Then, having watered his horse, he is to go and fight the dragon. He goes, and knocks the dragon about with his sword. The dragon shoots fire from his mouth, but the horse throws up the water he has drunk, and quenches it. Jack puts back the horse, changes his clothes, and goes home with the cows. He gives another plum to the girl, who has to meet the dragon again next day, and asks Jack to be there. He refuses. Next morning she gives Jack his food, and Jack at the little man's suggestion asks for more. He gets it, goes, and shares it with the little man. It is the same as before, only this time he gets a white horse and white clothes. The little man tells Jack that tomorrow is the last day of the fight, and bids him rise early, and ask the young lady to send more food. Jack gives her another plum. This time she prepares the food overnight, as she has to meet the dragon at daybreak. She wants Jack to come and see, but he refuses, must see after the cows. He gets a red horse and red clothes this time, and the horse drinks the water dry. The fire from the dragon burns the lady's hair, but the horse's flood of water quenches it, and between them they kill the dragon. The lady cuts off a lock of Jack's hair with a golden scissors. He returns to the castle, and there the girl tells him about the fight and gets another plum. Then there is the usual dinner. Every guest has to lay his head in the lady's lap to let her see whether the lock matches, Jack having meanwhile gone off as usual with his cows, and shared his food with the little man. They fail to match the hair, so they bring up the servants, Jack last of all, wearing the red clothes underneath his own rags. He marries the young lady, and they live first in the dead giant's castle, and then, the parents having died, in her father's. No exact parallel, but the story reminds one inter alia of the sheep grazing episode in Mare's Son, No. 20, and of the Polish gypsy, Tale of a Foolish Brother and of a Wonderful Bush, number 45. Number 62. The Green Man of Noman's Land. There was a young miller, who was a great gambler. Nobody could beat him. One day a man comes and challenges him. They play. Jack wins and demands a castle. There it is. They play again, and Jack loses. The man tells Jack his name is the Green Man of Noman's Land, and that unless Jack finds his castle in a year and a day he will be beheaded. The time goes by. Jack remembers his task, and sets out in cold and snow. He comes to a cottage, where an old woman gives him food and lodging. He asks her if she knows the Green Man. No, she says, but if a quarter of the world knows I can tell you. In the morning she mounts on the roof and blows a horn. A quarter of all the men in the world came. She asks them. They do not know the Green Man, and she dismisses them. Again she blows the horn, and the birds come. She asks them, they don't know, and she dismisses them. She sends Jack on to her elder sister, who knows more than she does. She lends Jack her horse, and gives him a ball of thread to place between the horse's ears. He comes to the second sister's house. It is long, she says, since I saw my sister's horse. He eats and sleeps, then asks about the Green Man. She knows not, but will tell him if half the world knows, so goes on the roof and blows a horn. Half the world come, but they do not know the Green Man. Go, she says, and blows the horn again. Half the birds in the world come, but with a like result. She takes her sister's horse, and gives Jack hers, with a ball of thread, and sends him on to the eldest sister. It is the same thing there. The third sister also doesn't know, but in the morning goes on the roof and blows a horn. All the people in the world come, but do not know the Green Man. Go. Again she blows, and all the birds come, but do not know. She goes down and looks in her book, and finds that the eagle is missing. She blows again, the eagle comes. And she abuses him. He explains that he has just come from the Green Man of Noman's Land. She lends Jack her horse, and bids him go till he comes to a pool and sees 3 white birds, to hide, and to steal the feathers of the last one to enter the water. He does so. The bird cries and demands its feathers. Jack insists on her carrying him over to her father's castle. She denies at first that she is the Green Man's daughter, but at last carries him over, and when across becomes a young lady. Jack goes up to the castle and knocks. The Green Man comes out. So you found the house, Jack? Yes. The Green Man sets him tasks, the loss of his head the penalty of failure. The first task is to clean the stable. As fast as he throws out a shovelful of dirt, 3 return. So Jack gives it up, and the girl, coming with his dinner, does it for him. The Green Man accuses him of receiving help, he denies it. The second task is to fell a forest before midday. Jack cuts down 3 trees and weeps. The girl brings his dinner, and does it for him, warning him not to tell her father. The same accusation is met with the same denial. The third task is to thatch a barn with a single feather only of each bird. Jack catches a robin, pulls a feather from it, lets it go then, and sits down despairing. The girl brings his food, and performs his task for him, warning him of the next task, the fourth one. This is to climb a glass mountain in the middle of a lake and to bring from the top of it the egg of a bird that lays 1 egg only. The girl meets him at the edge of the lake, and by her suggestion he wishes her shoe a boat. They reach the mountain. He wishes her fingers a ladder. She warns him to tread on every step and not miss one. He forgets, steps over the last rung, and gets the egg, but the girl's finger is broken. She warns him to deny having had any help. The fifth task is to guess which daughter is which, as in the shape of birds they fly thrice over the castle. Forewarned by the girl, Jack names them correctly. The Green Man thereupon gives in, and Jack weds his daughter. For the ball of thread, see pages 221, 233, and for looking in the book, page 12. Blowing a blast and summoning all the birds, occurs in the Romanian gypsy story of The Three Princesses and the Unclean Spirit, page 38, cf. The Welsh gypsy, Jack and his Golden Snuff-Box, page 214, where likewise the eagle comes last. So too in Dasent's Three Princesses of Whiteland, cf. Folklore for December 1890, page 496, and note on p. 17 of Georgiakis and Pinot's Folklore de Lesbos. The Green Man of Noman's Land offers close analogies to the Polish gypsy story of The Witch, No. 50, and is identical with Campbell's West Highland tale, The Battle of the Birds, No. 2, in a variant of which the hero plays cards with a dog, loses, so has to serve him. Reinhold Kohler has treated Campbell's story very fully in Orient and Occident, 2. 1864, pp. 103-114, where he gives Irish, Norse, Swedish, German, and Indian variants. The Indian variant, from the Sanskrit verse Katha Sarit Sagara of Somadeva, 11th century AD, is of high interest. In it the hero, by the help of his beloved, performs tasks set by her father, a cannibal Rakshasa. One of those tasks is the picking out of the beloved from among her sisters, as in The Green Man of Noman's Land. Then, as in The Witch, we get the pursuit, with transformations and final victory. What Kohler does not point out is that the two birds in Campbell's story correspond very closely to the two birds that figure so often in Indian folk tales, e.g. in The Belle Princess, Maeve Stokes's Indian Fairy Tales, page 149. Number 63. The Black Lady. A young girl goes to service at an old castle with the Black Lady, who warns her not to look through the window. The Black Lady goes out. The girl gets bored, looks through the window, and sees the Black Lady playing cards with the devil. She falls down frightened. The Black Lady comes in and asks her what she has seen. Nothing saw I, naught can I say. Leave me alone. I am weary of my life. The Black Lady beats her, and asks her again, what saw you through the window? Nothing saw I, etc. The girl runs off and meets a keeper, who takes her home, and after some years marries her. She has a child, and is bedded. Enter the Black Lady. What saw you through the window? Nothing saw I, etc. The Black Lady takes the child, dashes its brains out, and exit. Enter the husband. The wife offers no explanation, and the husband wants to burn her, but his mother intercedes and saves her this time. But the same thing happens again, and the husband makes a fire. As she is being brought to the stake, the Black Lady comes. What saw you through the window? Nothing saw I, etc. Take her and burn her, says the Black Lady. They fasten her up, and bring a light. The same question, the same answer. The Black Lady sees that she is secret, so gives her back her 2 children, and leaves her in peace. A Story of the Forbidden Room, type, cf. Clouston, I, 198-205. An incomplete Italian variant is cited there. Much closer parallels are Grimm's No. 3, Our Lady's Child, I. 7 and 341, and Dasent's The Lassie and Her Godmother, page 198. For playing cards with the devil, see page 120, and cf. Also this passage from the Romanian gypsy story of The Vampire, No. 5, page 18, Tell me what did you see me doing? I saw nothing. And he killed her boy. Number 64. The 10 Rabbits. In a little house on the hill lived an old woman with her 3 sons, the youngest of them a fool. The eldest goes to seek his fortune, and tells his mother to bake him a cake. Which will you have, a big one and a curse with it, or a little one and a blessing in it? He chooses a big cake. He comes to a stile and a beautiful road leading to a castle. He knocks at the castle door, and asks the old gentleman for work. He is sent into a field with the gentleman's rabbits. He eats his food, and refuses to give any to a little old man who asks for some. The rabbits run here and there. He tries to catch them, but fails to recover half of them. The gentleman counts them, and finds some missing, so cuts the eldest brother's head off, and sticks it on a gatepost. The second brother acts in the same way, and meets the same fate. The fool also will seek his fortune. He chooses a little cake with a blessing. His mother sends him with a sieve to get water for her. A robin bids him stop up the holes with leaves and clay. He does so, and brings water. He gets the cake and goes. He sees his two brothers' heads stuck on the gateposts, and stands laughing at them, saying, "What are you doing there, you two fools?" and throwing stones at them. He enters, dines, and smiles at the old gentleman's daughter, who falls in love with him. He goes to the field, lets the rabbits go, and falls asleep. The rabbits run about here and there. An old man by the well begs food, and Jack shares his food with him. Jack hunts for hedgehogs. He can't get the rabbits back, but the old man gives him a silver whistle. Jack blows, and the rabbits return. The old gentleman counts them, and finds them correct. The girl brings Jack his dinner daily in the field. The old man tells Jack to marry her. He does so, still living as servant in the stable till the old people's death. Then he takes over the castle, and brings his mother to live with him. A very imperfect story, still plainly identical with Dasent Osborne's pipe, Tales from the Field, p. 1, where it is hares that Boots has to tend, and an old wife gives him a magic pipe. According to an article in Temple Bar for May 1876, pp. 105 to 118, the same story is told of the Brussels mannequin, the well-known bronze figure, not quite a meter high, by Duquesnoy, 1619. Here a boy has to feed 12 rabbits in the forest, gets a magic whistle from an old woman, befalls a fat nobleman, the princess, and the king, and finally marries the princess. In the heads of the two brothers stuck on the gateposts, Mr. Baring Gould may find a confirmation of his theory that the stone balls surmounting gateposts are a survival of the practice of impaling the heads of one's enemies. Anyhow, in the Romanian gypsy story of The Three Princesses and the Unclean Spirit, number 10, page 39, the old wife threatens the hero, "I will cut off your head and stick it on yonder stake," cf. also Campbell's West Highland Tales, I.P. 51, line 20. For the big cake with curse or the little cake with blessing, cf. page 219. The hunting for hedgehogs is a very gypsy touch. Number 65. The Three Wishes. I Chevali Rani is the Romani title of this story. A fool lives with his mother. Once on a hillside he finds a young lady exposed to the heat of the sun, and twines a bower of bushes round her for protection. She awakes, and gives him 3 wishes. He wishes he were at home, no sooner said than done. On the way he catches a glimpse of a lovely lady at a window, and wishes idly that she were with child by him. She proves so, but knows not the cause. She bears a child, and her parents summon every one from far and near to visit her. When the fool enters, the babe says, "Dad, Dad." Disgusted at the lover's low estate, the parents cast all 3 adrift in a boat. The lady asks him how she became with child, and he tells her. Then you must have a wish still left. He wishes they were safe on shore in a fine castle of their own. They live happily there for some time, then return home, and visit the girl's parents splendidly dressed. The parents refuse to believe him the same man. He returns in his old clothes. Triumph and reconciliation. He provides for his old mother. This story is largely identical with Hans number 8, Der halbe Mensch, I. 102, 201, which lacks, however, the episode of making a bower for the fairy. That episode forms the opening of Radisla's Illyrian Slovenish story of The Vila, number 60, p. 314, otherwise different. And the whole Welsh gypsy story is absolutely identical with Basil's story of Peruantu in the Pentameron, I. 3. For the recognition of the father by the child see Clouston, 2. 159, note. In Hans' story the child gives its father an apple, and in Friedrich Müller's Hungarian gypsy story, Number 3, the Wallachian Gypsy, a lady is adjudged to him to whom she shall throw a red apple. Cf. also Hahn, I. 94, 2. 56. Bernhard Schmidt's Griechische Märchen, pages 85, 228, and Reinhold Kohler in Orient and Occident, 2. 1864, pages 304, 306. Number 66. Fairy Bride. A king has 3 sons, and knows not to which of them to leave his kingdom. They shoot for it with bow and arrows. The youngest shoots so far that his arrow is lost. He seeks it for a long time, and at last finds it sticking in a glass door. He enters and finds himself in the home of the queen of the fairies, whom he marries. After a while he returns home with his bride. An old witch who lives in the park incites the king to ask the fairy bride to fetch him a handkerchief which will cover the whole park. She does it, and then is asked to bring her brother. She refuses, but finally summons him. He enters, and terrifies the king by his threatening aspect. "What did you call me for?" The king is too frightened to answer coherently. The fairy's brother kills him and the old witch, and vanishes. They live at the castle. Arrows occur in the Bukowina Gypsy story of Mare's Son, number 20, page 79. The handkerchief that will cover all the park reminds one of the tent with room for the king and all his soldiers in an Arab version of Arnaud. 17. It all comes to light, Cosquin, I. 196. Otherwise I can offer no parallel for this story. Number 67. Cinderella. A glorious version, too long to take down, and now almost forgotten. After Cinderella's marriage the sisters live with her, and flirt with the prince. Her children are stolen, and Cinderella is turned into a sow. She protects the children, but at the instigation of the sisters, or stepmother, she is hunted by the prince's hounds and killed. The 3 children come to the hall, and beg for the sow's liver, its special efficacy forgotten. The children are followed and further restored to their father. Perhaps Cinderella herself comes again to life. Just enough to make one want more. But some day of course the whole tale must be taken down. Meanwhile I will merely remark that in 1871–72 I frequently saw an old gypsy house dweller, Cinderella Petulengro, or Smith, at Headington, near Oxford. From her I heard the story of fair Rosamare, so fair you could see the poison pass down her throat. She was turned, it seems, after death into a holy briar, which, being enchanted, bleeds if a twig be plucked. Number 68. Jack the Robber. The first half of this story, which, like the next, was told to Mr. Sampson in English by Cornelius Price, is here omitted, having been already summarized on pages 48–9. Now we'll leave the master to stand a bit, and go back to the mother. So in the morning Jack says to his mother, "Mother," he says, "give me one of them old bladders as hang up in the house, and," he says, "I'll fill it full of blood, and I'll tie it round your throat. And when the master comes up to ax me if I got the sheet, me and you will be having a bit of argument, and I'll up with my fist and hit you on the bladder, and the bladder will bust, and you'll make yourself to be dead. Now the master comes. Have you got the sheet, Jack?" And just as he's axing him, he up with his fist, and hits his mother. And the master says, "Oh Jack, what did you kill your poor mother for?" "Oh, I don't care, I can soon bring her right again." "No," says the master, "never, Jack." And Jack began to smile, and he says, "Can't I?" "You shall see, then." And he goes behind the door, and fetches a stick with a bit of a knob to it. Jack began to laugh. He touches his mother with this stick, and the old woman jumped up. "This is supposed to be an enchanted stick." Says the master, "Oh Jack," he says, "what shall I give you for that stick?" "Well, sir," he says, "I couldn't let you have that stick. My enchantment would be broke." "Well, Jack, if you'll let me have that stick, I'll never give you another thing to do as long as you live here." So he gave him £50 for this stick, and said he'd never give him nothing else to do for him. So the master went home to the house, and he didn't know which way to fall out with the missus, to try this stick. One day at dinner time he happened to fall out with her, the dinner she put for him didn't please him. So he up with his fist and he knocked her dead. In comes the poor servant girl and says, "Oh master, whatever did you kill the poor missus for?" He says, "I'll survey you the same." And he surveyed her the same. In come the wagoner, and he asked, what did he kill the missus and the sarvint for? And he says, "I'll survey you the same," he says. He wanted to try this stick what he had off Jack, he thought he could use it the same way as Jack. So he touched the missus with it first, but she never rose. He touched the servant with it, and she never rose. He touched the wagoner, and he never rose. Well, he says, "I'll try the big end," he says, and he tries the knob. So he battered and battered with the knob till he battered the brains out of the three of them. He does no more, and he goes up to Jack and says, "Oh Jack, you've ruined me for life." He says, "Jack, I shall have to drown you." So Jack says, "All right, master." "Well, get in this bag," he says, and he takes him on his back. As he was going along the road, he went one field off the road, being a very methliest man. During the time he was down there come a drovier by with his cattle. Now Jack's head was out of the sack. "Hello. Jack, where are you going?" "To heaven, I hope." "Oh. Jack, let me go. I'm an older man till you, and I'll give you all my money and this cattle." Jack told him to unloosen the bag to let him out, and for him to get into it. Away Jack goes with the cattle and the money. So the master comes up, taking no notice of it, and he picks the bag up, and puts it on his shoulder, and goes on till he comes to Montfort's Bridge. Point 134 he says, 1, 2, 3, and away he chucks him over. Well, Jack goes now about the country, dealing in cattle. So in about 3 years' time he comes round the same way again, round the master's place. So, "Hello. Jack," he says, "wherever did you get them from?" "Well, sir," he says, "when you throwed me, if I'd had a little boy at the turning to turn them straight down the road, I should have had as many more." So he says, "Jack, will you chuck me there, and you stop at the turning to turn them?" So Jack says, "You'll have to walk till you get there, for I can't carry you." And when he got to the bridge Jack put him in the bag, and Jack counted his 1, 2, 3, same as he counted for him, and away he goes. And Jack went back and took to the farm, and making very good use of it. For many a night he let me sleep in the field with my tent for telling that lie about him. Matthew Wood gave the closing episode to Mr. Sampson, who summarizes it thus. Number 69. The Fool with the Sheep. The youngest of 3 brothers is a fool, and the 2 others want to kill him. They induce him to get into a sack as the way to go to heaven. He does so, and they take him to the sea. They stop for a drink at a tavern. A stranger comes by with sheep. He wants to go, and takes Jack's place, and is thrown into the sea. Jack returns with the sheep. The brothers find him at home with his flock, and ask where he got them. At the bottom of the sea. They want to go too, so Jack throws them in, and returns home. One of the Boswells remarked to me 20-odd years ago, "The folks hereabouts are a lot of ratfellow heathens. They all think they are going to heaven in a sack." Our story is a very widespread one. A Polish gypsy fragment of it was printed as a specimen by Kopernicki, Gypsy Lore Journal, 3. 132, and it occurs also in Grimm, The Little Peasant, No. 61, I, 264, for 22, Campbell of Islay, The 3 Widows, No. 39, 2. 218 to 238, cfr. Kohler thereon in Orient and Occident, 2. 1864, pages 486 to 506, and Straparola, Venice, 1550, Scarpafigo, I, 3, besides which Clouston, 2. 229 to 288, 489 to 91, cites Irish, English, Norse, Danish, Icelandic, Burgundian, Gascon, Sicilian, Modern Greek, Kabyle, Indian, and other versions. He could not of course give two excellent versions from A. Campbell's Santal Folk Tales, 1891, The Story of Baitaram, pages 25 to 32, and The Greatest Cheat of Seven, pages 98 to 101. In the first, which has features of Grimm's Thumbling, number 37, and Frederick and Catherine, no. 59, Baitaram, who is only a span high, by measuring money in a pilaw and leaving some coins sticking in it, deludes the king and his sons into killing all their cattle and firing their houses so as likewise to grow rich by the sale of the hides and the ashes. They resolve to drown him, put him in a bag, and carry him to the river, then go to a little distance to cook their food. Baitaram tells a herd boy that they are going to marry him against his will. The herd boy takes his place. And the story ends exactly as in the European versions, only with cows and buffaloes in place of sheep. In the second story the rivals are induced to purchase a magic fishing rod and a marvelous dog, to burn their houses, and to kill their wives. The occurrence of this story, as of others already cited, among the aboriginal Santals of India is exceedingly curious. Is it perhaps to be explained by the frequent mention in the collection of Doms equals Roms equals Gypsies? Cornelius Price's whole story of Jack the Robber is a combination of the Master Thief and the Little Peasant, such as meets us also in Hahn's Greek story of Beauty and the Dragon, number 3, I. 75 to 79, 2. 178 to 186. Number 70. The Tinker and His Wife. Once there was a tinker and his wife, and they got into a bit of very good country for yearnin' a few shillings quick. And in this country there wasn't very little lodgings. Well, my wench, he said to his wife, I think we'll go and take that little empty house, and keep a little beer. Well, my wench, I'll order for a barrel of beer. He has this barrel of beer in the house. Now, my wench, you make the biggest penny out of it as ever you can, and I'll go off for another week's walk. In the course of one day a packman come by. He says, it's gettin' very warm, missus, isn't it? No, indeed, she says, it's very cold weather. I've got a very big load, and it makes me sweat, and I think it's warm. I sell beer here, she says. He says, well, God bless you, put me a drop for this penny. It was one of the old big pennies, and was the biggest penny she ever saw there. She brought him all the barrel for it. So she takes the penny and drops it in the basin on the mantel shelf. He was there 3 days drinking till he emptied the barrel of beer. The husband comes home at the end of the week. Well, my wench, how did you get on? Well, Jack, I did very well. I sold every drop of beer. Well done, my wench, we'll have another one and see how that goes. Now, my wench, bring them few shillings down, and let's see what you made upon it. She brings the basin down, and says, you telled me to make the biggest penny on it as ever I could. He begin to count it, and turns the basin upside down, and empties it on the table. And what was there but the one big penny? Well. Well. Well, he says, you'll ruin me now for life. Ah, she says, Jack, didn't you tell me to make the biggest penny out of it as ever I could, and that was the biggest penny as ever I seen. Well, he says, my wench, I see you don't understand sellin' beer. I think I'll buy a little pig. We've got plenty of taters and cabbage in the garden. Well, now, my wench, when the butcher comes round to kill the pig, you walk round the garden and count every cabbage that's in the garden, and you get a little stick, and stick it by every cabbage in the garden. And when the butcher slays the pig up, you revide a piece of pig up for every cabbage in the garden. She revided a piece of pig up for every cabbage in the garden, and stuck it on every stick round the cabbages. The husband comes home again. Well, my wife, how did you go on with the pig? Well, Jack, I done as you told me, she says. I got a stick and stuck it by every cabbage, and put a piece of mate on every stick. Well. Well. Well, he says, where is the mate gone to now? You'll ruin me if I stop here much longer. Pull the fire out, he says, and I'll get away from here. And he picks up his basket and throws it on his shoulder. Pull that door after you, he says. What did she do but she pulls all the fire out and put it into her apron. The old door of the house was tumbling down, and she picks it up and put it on her back. So him being into a temper, he didn't take much notice of her behind him. They travelled on, and it come very dark. They comes to an old hollow tree by the side of the road. Well, my wench, I think we'll stop here tonight. They goes up to the top of the old tree. After they got up in the tree, the robbers got underneath them. Whatever you do, my wench, keep quiet. This is a robber's den. The robbers had plenty of meat and everything, and they prayed for a bit of fire. She says, Jack, she says, I shall have to drop it. So she drops the fire out of her apron, and it go down the hollow tree. See, what a godsend that is, said one. They cooked the meat as they had. The Lord send me a drop of vinegar, says one. Thank God for that, says that other one. See what a godsend 'tis to us. Now, the door's fastened to her back yet, and she says, Jack, I shall have to drop it. Drop what? He says. I shall have to drop the door, Jack, she says, the rope's cutting my shoulders in two. So she dropped the door down the hollow tree, and it went tumble down the tree, and these robbers thought 'twas the devil himself coming. They jumps up, and away they goes down the road as hard as ever they could go. The time as they run, Jack's wife goes down the tree and picks up the bag of gold what they'd left. Being frightened as they'd had such godsends to them, they left all behind. They had one brother as was deaf and dumb. Him being a very valuable 135 fellow, he thought he'd come back to see what was the matter. He come peepin' round the old tree. Who happened to see him but Jack's wife? And he went, to her. Come here, she says, I can cure your speech. She made motions with her own mouth for him to put his tongue out. She drew the knife slightly from behind her as he put his tongue out, and cut half of his tongue off. Him being bleeding, he went awa wah 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 wah, putting his hand to his mouth and making motions to his brothers. And when he got back to his brothers, them seeing him bleeding, they thought sure the devil was there. I never see Jack nor his wife nor the robbers since after they left the tree. Matthew Wood furnished another, imperfect, Welsh gypsy version. Number 71. Winter. An old man and woman, very poor, live in a cottage. The old man saves up money in a stocking for winter. A beggar comes to the door. The old woman asks his name. Winter. Here is money, my old man, saved for you. The old husband comes home. They leave the cottage, the old woman taking the door with her, reason not given, and camp out in a tree. Robbers come and camp underneath, and quarrel over the division of their spoil. They want change for £1. One says he will have change if he goes to the devil for it. Down falls the door. The robbers think it is the devil, and fly, leaving the money. The old man and woman seize it, and return to their cottage. Halliwell's Popular Rhymes and Nursery Tales, 1849, page 31, has a story of the miser and his wife, where the beggar calls himself Good Fortune. A most unlikely name, whereas Winter, it is worth remarking, was the name of a Northumbrian gypsy family, Simpson's History of the Gypsies, 1865, page 96, as also of German gypsies. The story of Mr. Vinegar, Halliwell, p. 26, obtained from oral tradition in the west of England, tells how a husband and wife go off, taking the door, climb a tree, let the door fall on thieves, and get the booty. A very Rabelaisian passage in Price's story, which I have omitted, explains why vinegar. That story is identical with Grimm's Frederick and Catherine, number 59, I. 238 to 244 and 417 to 18, for putting meat among the cabbages, cf. Grimm's Dymel variant. In Campbell's Santal Folk Tales, page 30, Bitaram climbs into a tree for safety when darkness comes on, as wild beasts infested the forest through which he was passing. During the night some thieves came under the tree in which he was, and began to divide the money they had stolen. Bitaram then relaxed his hold of his dry cowhide, which made such a noise as it fell from branch to branch that the thieves fled terror-stricken, and left all their booty behind them. In the morning Bitaram descended, and collecting all the rupees carried them home. And in F.A. Steele's Wide Awake Stories from the Punjab, page 242, there is another most curious parallel, where the robber captain puts out his tongue, and, snip. The barber's clever wife bites the tip off clean. What with the fright and the pain, he tumbled off the branch and fell bump on the ground, where he sat with his legs very wide apart, looking as if he had fallen from the skies. "What is the matter?" cried his comrades, awakened by the noise of his fall. "Bololo bololo," said he, still pointing upwards. "The man is bewitched," cried one, "there must be a ghost in the tree. From India to Wales I know not how many thousands of miles, neither know I how many centuries since the forebears of the tellers of these two tales parted company." Cf. also Han, I. 221. Number 72. The Black Dog of the Wild Forest. There was a king and queen in the north of Ireland, and they had one son. The son had to be devoured when he came of age by the black dog of the wild forest, and his father was very fond of his son. When he came close to the time when he had to be devoured, his father took him a shorter journey every day, and one day his father saddled the best horse as he had in his stable, and gave him as much money as he liked to take with him. He galloped away as hard as ever he could till he got benighted. He rode some hundreds and hundreds of miles, and he could see a small little light a little distance off him, maybe 100 miles off him to the best of his knowledge in the dark, and he makes for this little light. And who was living there but an old witch? "Well, come in, 136 my king's son," she said, "from the north of Ireland. I know you aren't very well." And so when he comes in, she puts him in the S-hole under the fire. He hadn't been in there but 20 minutes, but in comes the black dog of the wild forest, spitting fire yards away out of his mouth, old lady and her little dog named Hereall after him. But they beat him. "Now," she says, "my king's son, please to get up. You can have your tea now. We have beat him." So he gets up, has his tea with her, and gives a lot of money to the old lady, which says they have got a sister living from her 300 miles. And if you can get there, 10 to 1 she will give you her advice to get safe. "I will give you my favors, the bread out of my mouth, that is Hereall, the dog. I will give you that dog with you." He gallops on, till he gets benighted. He looks behind him on the way he was going, his horse was getting very tired, and he could see the black dog of the wild forest after him. And he gallops on till he comes to t'other sister's house. "Well, come in," she says, "my king's son from the north of Ireland. I know you aren't very well." She puts him down into the S-hole again, sir, and she had a little dog named Springall. If they fought hard the first night they fought 15 times harder with Hereall and Springall and old lady herself. "Well," she said, "my king's son, I will do the best as ever I can for you. I will give you Springall, and I will give you the rod. Don't forget what I tell you to do with this rod. You follow this ball of worsted. Now it will take you right straight to a river. You will see the black dog of the wild forest, and as ever you get to this river, you hit this rod in the water, and a fine bridge will jump up. And when you get to t'other side, just hit the water, and the bridge will fall in again, and the black dog of the wild forest cannot get you." He got into another wild forest over the water, and he got romping and moping about the forest by himself till he got very wild. He got moping about, and he found he got to a castle. That was the king's castle as he got over there to. He got to this castle, and the gentleman put him on to a job at this castle. So he says to him, "Jack, are you only good at shooting?" "Yes, sir," he says, "I can shoot a little bit. I can shoot a long way further." "Well, will you go out today, Jack, and we will have a shot or two in the forest?" They killed several birds and wild varmints in the forest. So him being sweet upon a daughter at this big hall, her and Jack got very great together. Jack took her down to the river to show her what he could do with his rod, him being laughing and joking with her. The king wanted a bridge made over the river, and he said there was no one as could do it. My dear, says Jack, I could do it, he says. With what? She says. With my rod. He touched the water with his rod, and up springs as nice a bridge as ever you have seen up out of the water. Him being laughing and joking with this young girl, he come away and forgot the bridge standing. He comes home. Next day following he goes off again shooting with the king again, and the black dog of the wild forest comes to the king's house. He says to Oud lady herself, whatever you do tomorrow, Jack will be going out shooting again, and you get Jack to leave his 2 little dogs, as I am going to devour Jack. And whatever you do, you fasten M down in the cellar tomorrow, and I will follow Jack to the forest where he is going shooting. And if Jack kills me, he will bring me back on the top of his horse on the front of him. And you will say to him, Oh Jack, whatever are you going to do with that? I am going to make a fire of it, he will say. And he will burn me, and when he burns me he will burn me to dust. And you get a small bit of stick. Jack will go away and leave me after, and you go and rake my dust about, and you will find a lucky bone. And when Jack goes to his bed, you drop this lucky bone in Jack's ear, he will never rise no more, and you can take and bury him. Now the old lady was against Jack a lot for being there. So the black dog of the wild forest told Oud lady the way to kill Jack. So see, as when Jack brings me back and burns me, you look in my dust, and you will find a lucky bone, and you drop it when Jack goes to bed, drop it into his ear, and Jack will never rise from his bed no more, he will be dead. Take Jack and bury him. Jack goes to the forest a shooting, and the black dog of the wild forest follows him, and Jack begin to cry. Now if the fire came from his mouth the first time, it came 100 times more, and Jack begin to cry. Oh dear, he cried, where is my little Hear-all and Spring-all? He had no sooner said the words, 5 minutes but scarcely, comes up the 2 little dogs, and they's a very terrible fight. But Jack masters him and kills him. He brings home the black dog of the wild forest on the front of his horse, he brings him back, Jack, on the front of his horse, and the king says, whatever are you going to do with that? I'm going to burn him. After he burns him to dust. The black dog of the wild forest says to Oud lady, when Jack burns me to dust, you get a little stick and rake my dust about, and you will find a lucky bone. You drop that lucky bone in Jack's ear when he goes to bed, and Jack will never waken no more, and then you can take and bury him, and after that Jack is buried there will be no more said about him. Well, Oud woman did do so, sir. When Jack went to bed, she got this lucky bone and did as the black dog of the wild forest told her. She did drop it in Jack's ear, and Jack was dead. They take Jack off to bury him. Jack been buried 3 days, and the parson wondered what these 2 little dogs was moping about the grave all the time. He couldn't get them away. I think we'll rise Jack again, he says. And as ever they rise him, off opened the lid of the coffin, and little Hear-all jumped to the side of his head, and he licked the lucky bone out of his ear. And up Jack jumped alive. Jack says, whoever put me here? It was the king as had you buried here, Jack. Jack made his way home to his own father and mother. Going on the road Jack was riding bounded on the back of his horse's back. Hear-all says to him, Jack, he says, come down, cut my head off. Oh dear, no. Hear-all. I couldn't do that for the kindness you have done for me. If you don't do it, Jack, I shall devour you. He comes down off his horse's back, and he kills little Hear-all. He cuts his head off, and well oft-times, he goes crying about Hear-all, for what he done. Goes on a little further. Spring-all says to him, Jack, you have got to come down and serve me the same. Oh dear, no. He says, Spring-all, I shall take it all to heart. Well, he says, if you don't come down, Jack, he says, I will devour you. Jack comes down, and he cuts his head off, and he goes on the road, crying very much to himself about his two little dogs. So going on this road as he was crying, he turned his head round at the back of his horse, looking behind him, and he sees two of the handsomest young ladies coming as ever he saw in his life. What are you crying for? Said these ladies to him. I am crying, he said, about two little dogs, two faithful dogs, what I had. What was the name of your little dogs? One was named Hereall, and the t'other was named Springall. Would you know them two dogs if you would see them again? Oh dear, yes, says Jack. Oh dear, yes, says Jack. Well, I am Hereall, and this is Springall. Away Jack goes home to his father and mother, and lives very happy there all the days of his life. A capital and very curious story, but plainly imperfect. Jack, of course, should marry the princess. There is a very West Highland ring about it, yet I cannot match it from Campbell, nor indeed elsewhere. At the same time many of the incidents are familiar enough. For the balls of worsted and the three helpful sisters, or brothers, hermits, etc., of John Roberts' story of An Old King and His Three Sons, number 55, pages 220 to 234. The bridge-making episode suggests a combination of the passage of the Red Sea and the bridge-making ball of yarn in The Companion, Dasent's Tales from the Field, page 73. The lucky bone in the ear reminds one of the pin which, driven into the heroine's head, causes transformation into a bird, Maeve Stokes's Indian Fairy Tales, pages 12, 14, 253, and Laura Gonzenbach's Sissel. Merkin, I.P. 82, or of the comb, poisoned apple, etc., in Grimm's Snow White, number 53, and its Chian, Albanian, and other variants, which produce, as in Jack's case, suspended animation. For the cutting off of the helpful animal's head, under a threat, and the consequent transformation, cf. the Scottish Tinker story of The Fox, number 75. Chapter 9. Scottish Tinker Stories. Number 73. The Brown Bear of the Green Glen. There was a king in Erin once who had a leash of sons. John was the name of the youngest one, and it was said that he was not wise enough. And this good, worldly king lost the sight of his eyes and the strength of his feet. The two eldest brothers said that they would go seek 3 bottles of the water of the green isle that was about the heaps of the deep. And so it was that these 2 brothers went away. Now the fool said that he would not believe but that he himself would go also. And the first big town he reached in his father's kingdom, there he sees his 2 brothers there, the blackguards. Oh! My boys, says the young one, is it thus you are? With swiftness of foot, said they, take thyself home, or we will have thy life. Don't be afraid, lads. It is nothing to me to stay with you. Now John went away on his journey till he came to a great desert of a wood. Who, says John to himself, it is not canny for me to walk this wood alone. The night was coming now, and growing pretty dark. John ties the cripple white horse to the root of a tree, and he went up in the top himself. He was but a very short time in the top, when he saw a bear coming with a fiery cinder in his mouth. Come down, son of the king of Erin, says he. Indeed, I won't come. I am thinking I am safer where I am. But if thou wilt not come down, I will go up, said the bear. Art thou, too, taking me for a fool, says John. A shaggy, shambling creature like thee, climbing a tree. But if thou wilt not come down, I will go up, says the bear, as he fell out of hand to climbing the tree. Lord! Thou canst do that same, said John, keep back from the root of the tree, then, and I will go down to talk to thee. And when the son of Erin's king drew down, they came to chatting. The bear asked him if he was hungry. Weak by your leave, said John, I am a little at this very same time. The bear took that wonderful watchful turn, and he catches a roebuck. Now, son of Erin's king, says the bear, whether wouldst thou like thy share of the buck boiled or raw? The sort of meat I used to get would be kind of plotted boiled, says John. And thus it fell out, John got his share roasted. Now, said the bear, lie down between my paws, and thou hast no cause to fear cold or hunger till morning. Early in the morning the bear asked, Art thou asleep, son of Aaron's king? I am not very heavily, said he. It is time for thee to be on thy soles, then. Thy journey is long 200 miles. But art thou a good horseman, John? There are worse than me at times, said he. Thou hadst best get on top of me, then. He did this, and at the first leap John was to earth. Foil. Foil, says John. What? Thou art not bad at the trade thyself. Thou hadst best come back till we try thee again. And with nails and teeth he fastened on the bear, till they reached the end of the 200 miles and the giant's house. Now, John, said the bear, thou shalt go to pass the night in this giant's house. Thou wilt find him pretty grumpy, but say thou that it was the brown bear of the green glen that set thee here for a night's share, and don't thou be afraid that thou wilt not get share in comfort. And he left the bear to go to the giant's house. Son of Aaron's king, says the giant, thy coming was in the prophecy, but if I did not get thy father, I have got his son. I don't know whether I will put thee in the earth with my feet or in the sky with my breath. Thou wilt do neither of either, said John, for it is the brown bear of the green glen that set me here. Come in, son of Aaron's king, said he, and thou shalt be well taken to this night. And as he said, it was true. John got meat and drink without stint. But to make a long tale short, the bear took John day after day to the third giant. Now, says the bear, I have not much acquaintance with this giant, but thou wilt not be long in his house when thou must wrestle with him. And if he is too hard on thy back, say then, if I had the brown bear of the green glen here, that was thy master. As soon as John went in, ai. Or ee. Says the giant. If I did not get thy father, I have got his son. And to grips they go. They would make the boggy bog of the rocky rock. In the hardest place they would sink to the knee, in the softest up to the thighs, and they would bring wells of spring water from the face of every rock. 137 The giant gave John a sore wrench or two. Foil. Foil, says he. If I had here the brown bear of the green glen, thy leap would not be so hearty. And no sooner spoke he the word than the worthy bear was at his side. Yes. Yes. Says the giant, son of Aaron's king, now I know thy matter better than thou dost thyself. So it was that the giant ordered his shepherd to bring home the best wether he had in the hill, and to throw his carcass before the great door. Now, John, says the giant, an eagle will come and she will settle on the carcass of this wether, and there is a wart on the ear of this eagle which thou must cut off with this sword, but a drop of blood thou must not draw. The eagle came, but she was not long eating when John drew close to her, and with one stroke he cut the wart of her without drawing one drop of blood. Och! Is not that a fearful lie? Now, said the eagle, come on the root of my two wings, for I know thy matter better than thou dost thyself. He did this, and they were now on sea and now on land, and now on the wing, till they reached the Green Isle. Now, John, says she, be quick and fill thy 3 bottles. Remember that the black dogs are away just now. What dogs? Black dogs. Dost thou not know that they always had black dogs chasing the Gregorak? When he filled the bottles with the water out of the well, he sees a little house beside him. John said to himself that he would go in, and that he would see what was in it. And the first chamber he opened, he saw a full bottle. And what was in it? What should be in it but whiskey? He filled a glass out of it, and he drank it, and when he was going, he gave a glance, and the bottle was as full as it was before. I will have this bottle along with the bottles of water, says he. Then he went into another chamber, and he saw a loaf. He took a slice out of it, but the loaf was as whole as it was before. Ye gods! I won't leave thee, says John. He went on thus till he came to another chamber. He saw a great cheese, he took a slice of the cheese, but it was as whole as ever. "I will have this along with the rest," says he. Then he went to another chamber, and he saw laid there the very prettiest little jewel of a woman he ever saw. "It were a great pity not to kiss thy lips, my love," says John. Soon after John jumped on top of the eagle, and she took him on the selfsame steps till they reached the house of the big giant. And they went paying rent to the giant, and there was the sight of tenants and giants and meat and drink. "Well, John," says the giant, "didst thou see such drink as this in thy father's house in Erin?" "Pooh," says John, "who?" "My hero, thou other man, I have a drink this is unlike it." He gave the giant a glass out of the bottle, but the bottle was as full as it was before. "Well," said the giant, "I will give thee myself 200 notes, 138 a bridle, and a saddle for the bottle." "It is a bargain, then," says John. "But that the first sweetheart I ever had must get it if she comes the way." "She will get that," says the giant. But to make the long story short, he left each loaf and cheese with the two other giants, with the same covenant that the first sweetheart he ever had should get them if she came the way. Now John reached his father's big town in Erin. And he sees his two brothers as he left them, the blackguards. "You had best come with me, lads," says he, "and you will get a dress of cloth and a saddle and bridle each." And so they did. But when they were near to their father's house, the brothers thought that they had better kill him, and so it was that they set on him. And when they thought he was dead, they threw him behind a dike. And they took from him the 3 bottles of water, and they went home. John was not too long here, when his father's smith came the way with a cartload of rusty iron. John called out, "Whoever the Christian is that is there, oh, that he should help him." The smith caught him, and he threw John amongst the iron. And because the iron was so rusty, it went into each wound and sore that John had, and so it was that John became rough-skinned and bald. Here we will leave John, and we will go back to the pretty little jewel that John left in the Green Isle. She became pale and heavy, and at the end of 3/4 she had a fine lad son. "Oh! In all the great world," says she, "how did I find this?" "Foil! Foil," says the hen wife, "don't let that set thee thinking. Here's for thee a bird, and as soon as he sees the father of thy son, he will hop on the top of his head." The Green Isle was gathered from end to end, and the people were put in at the back door and out at the front door, but the bird did not stir, and the babe's father was not found. Now here she said she would go through the world altogether till she should find the father of the babe. Then she came to the house of the big giant and seized the bottle. "Ai, said she, "who gave thee this bottle?" Said the giant, "It was young John, son of Erin's king, that left it." "Well, then, the bottle is mine," said she. But to make a long story short, she came to the house of each giant, and she took with her each bottle and each loaf and each cheese, till at last she came to the house of the king of Erin. Then the 5/5 of Erin were gathered, and the bridge of nobles of the people, they were put in at the back door and out at the front door, but the bird did not stir. Then she asked if there was one other or any one else at all in Erin that had not been here. "I have a bald rough-skinned gilly in the smithy," said the smith, "but rough on or off, send him here," says she. No sooner did the bird see the head of the bald rough-skinned gilly than he took a flight and settles on the bald top of the rough-skinned lad. She caught him and kissed him, "Thou art the father of my babe." "But, John," says the great king of Erin, "it is thou that gottest the bottles of water for me." "Indeed, 'twas I," says John. "Weel, then, what art thou willing to do to thy 2 brothers?" "The very thing they wish to do to me, do for them." And that same was done. John married the daughter of the king of the Green Isle, and they made a great rich wedding that lasted 7 days and 7 years. And thou couldst but hear league, and beag, solid sound and peg drawing. Gold crushing from the soles of their feet to the tips of their fingers, the length of 7 years and 7 days. A variant clearly of John Roberts' Welsh gypsy story of An Old King and His Three Sons in England, number 55, pp. 220 to 234, but I expect that Matthew Wood's variant, The Bottle of Black Water, would come closer still. Some day Mr. Sampson must give us that with its fellows. Which is the better story, that of John Roberts, the Welsh harper, or this of John MacDonald, the travelling tinker? Is hard to determine. In some respects each is immeasurably superior. John Roberts is the more coherent and intelligible. But it lacks that splendid wrestling match, with which compare the much poorer one in the Bohemian Gypsy story of The Three Dragons, number 44, page 152. And then, while it preserves the handkerchief ordeal, it has not the inexhaustible whiskey bottle, loaf, and cheese. The occurrence of a bear in each version, though with marked differences, can hardly be accidental. For a long while after I got John Roberts' story, I believed that its close was largely of his own invention, but that belief now seems to be inadmissible. The Polish gypsy story of The Golden Bird and the Good Hare, number 49, pp. 182-8, and its Scottish tinker version, The Fox, number 75, should be carefully studied. Number 74. The Tale of the Soldier. There was an old soldier once, and he left the army. He went to the top of a hill that was at the upper end of the townland, and he said, "Well, may it be that the mischief may come and take me with him on his back the next time that I come again in sight of this town." Then he was walking till he came to the house of a gentleman that was there. John asked the gentleman if he would get leave to stay in his house that night. "Well, then," said the gentleman, "since thou art an old soldier, and hast the look of a man of courage, without dread or fear in thy face, there is a castle at the side of yonder wood, and thou mayest stay in it till day. Thou shalt have a pipe and bocce, a cogie full of whiskey, and a Bible to read. 139. When John got his supper, he took himself to the castle. He set on a great fire, and when a while of the night had come, there came two tawny women in, and a dead man's kist between them. They threw it at the fireside, and they sprang out. John arose, and with the heel of his foot he drove out its end, and he dragged out an old hoary bodak. And he set him sitting in the great chair, he gave him a pipe and bocce, and a cogie of whiskey, but the bodak let them fall on the floor. "Poor man," said John, "the cold is on thee." John laid himself stretched in the bed, and he left the bodak to toast himself at the fireside, but about the crowing of the cock he went away. The gentleman came well early in the morning. "What rest didst thou find, John?" "Good rest," said John, "thy father was not the man that would frighten me." "Right, good John, thou shalt have 200 pund, and lie tonight in the castle." "I am the man that will do that," said John. And that night it was the very like. There came 3 tawny women, and a dead man's kist with them amongst them. They threw it up to the side of the fireplace, and they took their souls out of that. John arose, and with the heel of his boot he broke the head of the kist, and he dragged out of it the old hoary man. And, as he did the night before, he set him sitting in the big chair, and gave him pipe and bocce, and he let them fall. "Oh! Poor man," said John, "cold is on thee." Then he gave him a cogie of drink, and he let that fall also. "Oh! Poor man, thou art cold." The bodak went as he did the night before. "But," said John to himself, "if I stay here this night, and that thou shouldst come, thou shalt pay my pipe and bocce, and my cogie of drink." The gentleman came early enough in the morning, and he asked, "What rest didst thou find last night, John?" "Good rest," said John. "It was not the hoary bodak, thy father, that would put fear on me." "Och!" said the gentleman, "if thou stayest tonight thou shalt have 300 pund. "It's a bargain," said John. When it was a while of the night there came 4 tawny women, and a dead man's kist with them amongst them. And they set that down at the side of John. John arose, and he drew his foot, and he drove the head out of the kist. And he dragged out the old hoary man, and he set him in the big chair. He reached him the pipe and the bocce, the cup and the drink. But the old man let them fall, and they were broken. "Och," said John, "before thou goest this night, thou shalt pay me all thou hast broken." But word came there not from the head of the bodak. Then John took the belt of his Aberskaic 140 and he tied the bodak to his side, and he took him with him to bed. When the heathcock crowed, the bodak asked him to let him go. "Pay what thou hast broken first," said John. "I will tell thee, then," said the old man, "there is a cellar of drink under, below me, in which there is plenty of drink, tobacco, and pipes. There is another little chamber beside the cellar, in which there is a cauldron full of gold. And under the threshold of the big door there is a crocky full of silver. Thou sawest the women that came with me tonight?" "I saw," said John. "Well, there thou hast 4 women from whom I took the cows, and they in extremity. They are going with me every night thus, punishing me. But go thou and tell my son how I am being wearied out. Let him go and pay the cows, and let him not be heavy on the poor. Thou thyself and he may divide the gold and silver between you. And marry thyself my old girl. But mind, give plenty of gold of what is left to the poor, on whom I was too hard. And I will find rest in the world of worlds." The gentleman came, and John told him as I have told thee. But John would not marry the old girl of the hoary bodak. At the end of a day or two John would not stay longer. He filled his pockets full of the gold, and he asked the gentleman to give plenty of gold to the poor. He reached the house 141 but he was wearying at home, and he had rather be back with the regiment. He took himself off on a day of days, and he reached the hill above the town, from which he went away. But who should come to him but the mischief? "Hoth! Hoth! John, thou hast come back." "Hoth on thyself," quoth John, "I came." "Who art thou?" "I am the mischief, the man to whom thou gayest thyself when thou was here last." "Ai! Ai!" said John, "It's long since I heard tell of thee, but I never saw thee before. There is glamour on my eyes, I will not believe that it is thou at all. But make a snake of thyself, and I will believe thee. The mischief did this. Make now a lion of roaring. The mischief did this. Spit fire now 7 miles behind thee and 7 miles before thee. The mischief did this. "Well," said John, "since I am to be a servant with thee, come into my Aberskaic, and I will carry thee. But thou must not come out till I ask thee, or else the bargain's broke." The mischief promised, and he did this. "Now," said John, "I am going to see a brother of mine that is in the regiment. But keep thou quiet." So now John went into the town, and one yonder and one here would cry, "There is John the deserter." There was gripping of John, and a court held on him, and so it was that he was to be hanged about midday on the morrow. And John asked no favor but to be floored with a bullet. The coernial said, since he was an old soldier, and in the army so long, that he should have his asking. On the morrow, when John was to be shot, and the soldiers foursome round all about him, "What is that they are saying?" said the mischief. "Let me amongst them, and I won't be long scattering them." "Quist! Quist!" said John. "What's that speaking to thee?" said the coernial. "Oh! It's but a white mouse," said John. "Black or white," said the coernial, "don't thou let her out of the Aberskaic, and thou shalt have a letter of loosing, and let's see no more of thee." John went away, and in the mouth of night he went into a barn where there were 12 men threshing. "Oh! Lads," said John, "here's for you my old Aberskaic, and take a while threshing it, it is so hard that it is taking the skin off my back." They took as much as 2 hours of the watch at the Aberskaic with the 12 flails, and at last, every blow they gave it, it would leap to the top of the barn, and it was casting one of the threshers now and again on his back. When they saw that, they asked him to be out of that, himself and his Aberskaic, they would not believe but that the mischief was in it. Then he went on his journey, and he went into a smithy where there were 12 smiths striking their great hammers. "Here's for you, lads, an old Aberskaic, and I will give you half a crown, and take a while at it with the 12 great hammers." It is so hard that it is taking the skin off my back. But that was fun for the smiths, it was good sport for them, the Aberskaic of the soldier. But every scale it got, it was bounding to the top of the smithy. Go out of this, thyself and it, said they, we will not believe that the Bramman 142 is in it. So then John went on, and the mischief on his back, and he reached a great furnace that was there. Where art thou going now, John? Said the mischief. Patience a little, and thou, it see that, said John. Let me out, said the mischief, and I will never put trouble on thee in this world. Nor in the next, said John. That's it, said the mischief. Stop, then, said John, till thou get a smoke. And so saying, John cast the Aberskaic and the mischief into the middle of the furnace, and himself and the furnace went as a green flame of fire to the skies. The first half is a variant, and a good one, of the Welsh gypsy story of Ashypelt, number 57, page 235. The second half is a variant, a better one, of the latter part of the Welsh gypsy Old Smith, number 59, p. 247, and of the confused and imperfect Slovak gypsy Old Soldier, number 60, page 250. The prominence given to tobacco smoking in both Ashypelt and in the Scottish Tinker story suggests that the forebears of Cornelius Price and those of John MacDonald must have parted company at some time later than the beginning of the 17th century. Unless, indeed, this resemblance is accidental. About the beginning of the 19th century English gypsies must have visited Scotland much more than they did in 1870–80, when a few of the Smiths or Reynolds, Maces, and Lees, all closely connected, were the only English gypsies who travelled north of the Tweed. Since 1880, again, there has been a great influx of English gypsydom. One reason that fortune-telling seems to be not illegal in Scotland. In his notes upon Campbell's story in Orient and Occident, 2. 1864, pp. 679–680, Reinhold Kohler makes an odd slip, very unusual with him. He renders the mischief by Das Unglück, and is puzzled why poor Unglück should be so scurvily handled. Number 75. The Fox. Brian, the son of the king of Greece, fell in love with the henwife's daughter, and he would marry no other but she. His father said to him on a day of days, before that should happen, that he must get first for him the most marvellous bird that there was in the world. Then here went Brian, and he put the world under his head, till he came much further than I can tell, or you can think, till he reached the house of the Carlin of Buskins. 143. He got well taken to by the Carlin that night. And in the morning she said to him, it is time for thee to arise. The journey is far. When he rose to the door, what was it but sowing and winnowing snow? He looked hither and thither, and what should he see but a fox drawing on his shoes and stockings? Pshaw! Beast, said Brian, thou hadst best leave my lot of shoes and stockings for myself. Och! Said the fox, it's long since a shoe or a stocking was on me, and I'm thinking that I shall put them to use this day itself. Thou ugly beast, art thou thinking to steal my footwebs, and I myself looking at thee? Well, said the fox, if thou wilt take me to be thy servant, thou shalt get thy set of shoes and stockings. O poor beast, said he, thou wouldst find death with me from hunger. Ho! Hoth! Said the fox, there is little good in the servant that will not do for his own self and for his master at times. Yes, yes, said he, I don't mind, at all events thou mayst follow me. They had not gone far on their journey when the fox asked him if he was good at riding. He said he was, if it could be known what on. Come on top of me a turn of a while, said the fox. On top of thee? Poor beast, I would break thy back. Ho! Hoth! Son of the king of Greece, said the fox, thou didst not know me so well as I know thee. Take no care but that I am able to carry thee. But never mind. When Brian went on top of the fox, they would drive spray from each puddle, spark from each pebble. And they took no halt nor rest till they reached the house of the giant of 5 heads, 5 humps, and 5 throttles. Here's for thee, said the fox, the house of the giant who has the marvelous bird. And what wilt thou say to him when thou goest in? What should I say but that I came to steal the marvelous bird? Who? Said the fox, thou wilt not return. But, said the fox, take thou service with this giant to be a stable lad. And there is no sort of bird under the 7 russet rungs of the world that he has not got. And when he brings out the marvelous bird, say thou, Phuth! Phuth! The nasty bird, throw it out of my sight. I could find braver birds than that on the middens at home. Brian did thus. Stya! Said the big one, then I must go to thy country to gather a part of them. But Brian was pleasing the giant well. But on a night of the nights Brian steals the marvelous bird, and drags himself out with it. When he was a good bit from the giant's house, Stya, said Brian to himself, I don't know if it is the right bird I have after every turn. Brian lifts the covering off the bird's head, and he lets out one screech, and the screech roused the giant. Oh! Oh! Son of the king of Greece, said the giant, that I have coming to steal the marvelous bird. The prophet was saying that he would come to his gird. Then here the giant put on the shoes that could make 9 miles at every step, and he wasn't long catching poor Brian. They returned home to the giant's house, and the giant laid the binding of the 3 smalls on him, and he threw Brian into the peat corner, and he was there till the morning on the morrow's day. Now, said the giant, son of the king of Greece, thou hast thy 2 rathers, whether wouldst thou rather thy head to be on yonder stake, or go to steal the white glaive of light that is in the realm of big women? A man is kind to his life, said Brian. I will go to steal the white glaive of light. But never mind. Brian had not gone far from the giant's house when the fox met with him. O man without mind or sense, thou didst not take my counsel, and what will now arise against thee? Thou art going to the realm of big women to steal the white glaive of light. That is 20 times as hard for thee as the marvelous bird of that carle of a giant. But what help for it now but that I must betake myself to it, said poor Brian. Well, then, said the fox, come thou on top of me, and I am in hopes thou wilt be wiser the next time. They went then further than I can remember, till they reached the knoll of the country at the back of the wind and the face of the sun, that was in the realm of big women. Now, said the fox, thou shalt sit here, and thou shalt begin at blubbering and crying, and when the big women come out where thou art, they will lift thee in their oxters, and when they reach the house with thee, they will try to coax thee. But never thou cease of crying until thou get the white glaive of light, and they will leave it with thee in the cradle the length of the night, to keep thee quiet. Worthy Brian was not long blubbering and crying when the big women came, and they took Brian with them as the fox had said. And when Brian found the house quiet, he went away with the white glaive of light. And when he thought he was a good way from the house, he thought he would see if he had the right sword. He took it out of the sheath, and the sword gave out a ring. This awoke the big women, and they were on their sawls. Whom have we here, said they, but the son of the king of Greece coming to steal the white glaive of light? They took after Brian, and they were not long bringing him back. They tied him roundly, like a ball, and they threw him into the peat corner till the white morrow's day was. When the morning came, they asked him to be under the sparks of the bellows 144 or to go to steal the sun goddess, daughter of the king of the gathering of Finn. A man is kind to his life, said Brian. I will go steal the sun goddess. Never mind. Brian went, but he was not long on the path when the fox met him. O poor fool, said the fox, thou art as silly as thou wert ever. What good for me to be giving thee counsel? Thou art now going to steal the sun goddess. Many a better thief than thou went on the same journey, but ever a man came never back. There are 9 guards guarding her, and there is no dress under the 7 russet rungs of the world that is like the dress that is on her but one other dress, and here is that dress for thee. And mind, said the fox, that thou dost as I ask thee, or, if thou dost not, thou wilt not come to the next tale. Never mind. They went, and when they were near the guard, the fox put the dress on Brian, and he said to him to go forward straight through them, and when he reached the sun goddess to do as he bid him. And, Brian, if thou gettest her out, I will not be far from you. But never mind. Brian took courage, and he went on, and each guard made way for him, till he went in where the sun goddess, daughter of the king of the gathering of Finn, was. She put all hail and good luck on him, and she it was who was pleased to see him, for her father was not letting man come near her. And there they were. But how shall we get away at all, said she in the morning. Brian lifted the window, and he put out the sun goddess through it. The fox met them. Thou wilt do yet, said he. Leap you on top of me. And when they were far, far away, and near the country of big women, now, Brian, said the fox, is it not a great pity for thyself to give away this sun goddess for the white glaive of light? Is it not that which is wounding me at this very time, said Brian. It is that I will make a sun goddess of myself, and thou shalt give me to the big women, said the fox. I had rather part with the sun goddess herself than thee. But never thou mind, Brian, they won't keep me long. Here Brian went in with the fox as a sun goddess, and he got the white glaive of light. Brian left the fox with the big women, and he went forward. In a day or two the fox overtook them, and they got on him. And when they were nearing the house of the big giant, is it not a great pity for thyself, O Brian, to part with the white glaive of light for that filth of a marvelous bird? There is no help for it, said Brian. I will make myself a white glaive of light, said the fox. It may be that thou wilt yet find a use for the white glaive of light. Brian was not so much against the fox this time, since he saw that he had got off from the big women. Thou art come with it, said the big man. It was in the prophecies that I should cut this great oak tree at one blow, which my father cut 200 years ago with the same sword. Brian got the marvelous bird, and he went away. He had gone but a short distance from the giant's house when the fox made up to him with his pad to his mouth. What's this that befell thee, said Brian. Oh! The son of the great one, said the fox, when he seized me, with the first blow he cut the tree all but a small bit of bark. And look thyself, there is no tooth in the door of my mouth which that filth of a bodak has not broken. Brian was exceedingly sorrowful that the fox had lost the teeth, but there was no help for it. They were going forward, walking at times, and at times riding, till they came to a spring that there was by the side of the road. Now, Brian, said the fox, unless thou dost strike off my head with one blow of the white glaive of light into this spring, I will strike off thine. Staya, said Brian, a man is kind to his own life. And he swept the head off him with one blow, and it fell into the well. And in the wink of an eye what should rise up out of the well but the son of the king that was father to the sun goddess. They went on till they reached his father's house. And his father made a great wedding with joy and gladness, and there was no word about marrying the hen wife's daughter when I parted from them. On the 25th of April, 1859, at Inverary, John MacDonald, the tinker gave the beginning of this as part of his contribution to the evening's entertainment. He not only told the story, but acted it, dandling a fancied baby when it came to the adventure of the big women, and rolling his eyes wildly. The story which he told varied from that which he dictated in several particulars. It began. There was a king and a knight, as there was and will be, and as grows the fir tree, some of it crooked and some of it straight. And it was the king of Erin, it was. And the queen died with her first son, and the king married another woman. Oh! Bad straddling queen, thou art not like the sunsy, cheery queen that we had ere now. And here came a long bit which the tinker put into another story, and which he seems to have condensed into the first sentence of the version which I have got and translated. He has also transferred the scene from Ireland to Greece, perhaps because the latter country sounds better, and is further off, or perhaps because he had got the original form of the story from his old father in the meantime. Some of the things mentioned in the tinker's version have to do with druidical worship, the magic well, the oak tree, the bird. For the Celtic tribes, as it is said, were all guided in their wanderings by the flight of birds. The sun goddess, for the Druids are supposed to have worshipped the sun, and the sun is feminine in Gaelic. These are all mixed up with Finn the Sword of Light and the big women, personages and things which do not appear out of the Highlands. The whole of this last paragraph seems to me more than questionable, for the fox is beyond all question identical with the Polish gypsy story of The Golden Bird and the Good Hare, number 49, pages p. 182-8, in the excellent Serbian version of which it is a fox, not a hare. Druidism is hardly to be looked for in either Poland or Serbia. In some respects the Polish gypsy story is better than the Tinker one, but in others the Tinker version is greatly superior. Each, indeed, supplies the other's deficiencies. The original beginning, given by Campbell, seems to point to a form of the story where, as in the Indian versions of The Bad Mother, cited on page 35, note, the hero is sent on his quest by a stepmother. In his notes on the Gaelic story in Orient and Occident, 2. 1864, pages 685-6, Reinhold Kohler cites an interesting Wallachian version. Number 76. The Magic Shirt. I have furnished a name to this nameless story, a long one, which Campbell got from Old MacDonald, Travelling Tinker. Else I give it just as he gives it. There was a king in a knight, as there was and will be, and as grows the fir tree, some of it crooked and some of it straight. And he was a king of Erin, said the old tinker, and then came a wicked stepmother, who was incited to evil by a wicked hen-wife. The son of the first queen was at school with 12 comrades, and they used to play at shinny every day with silver shinnies and a golden ball. The hen-wife, for certain curious rewards, gave the stepdame a magic shirt, and she sent it to her stepson, Sheen Billy, and persuaded him to put it on. He refused at first, but complied at last, and the shirt was a great snake about his neck. Then he was enchanted and under spells, and all manner of adventures happened, but at last he came to the house of a wise woman who had a beautiful daughter, who fell in love with the enchanted prince, and said she must and would have him. It will cost thee much sorrow, said the mother. I care not, said the girl, I must have him. It will cost thee thy hair. I care not. It will cost thee thy right breast. I care not if it should cost me my life, said the girl. And the old woman agreed to help her to her will. A cauldron was prepared and filled with plants, and the king's son was put into it and stripped to the magic shirt, and the girl was stripped to the waist. And the mother stood by with a great knife, which she gave to her daughter. Then the king's son was put down in the cauldron. And the great serpent, which appeared to be a shirt about his neck, changed into its own form, and sprang on the girl and fastened on her, and she cut away the hold, and the king's son was freed from the spells. Then they were married, and a golden breast was made for the lady. And then, adds Mr. Campbell, they went through more adventures which I do not well remember, and which the old tinker's son vainly strove to repeat in August 1860, for he is far behind his father in the telling of old Highland tales. The serpent, then, would seem to be an emblem of evil and wisdom in Celtic popular mythology. Appendix. p. 249, the following Negro folk tale, first printed by me in the Athenaeum for August 10, 1887, page 245, was taken down by an American acquaintance, Mr. J. P. Silvercrop, C.E. In 1871, at Sand Mountain, Alabama, from the recitation of his Negro servant, Dick Brown, about 30 years old, who was a native of Petersburg, Virginia, and there had got it from his granny. It seems to be clearly a variant of The Master Smith, Clouston, 2. 409, and of Grimm's number 147, The Old Man Made Young Again, 2. 215, 444. If so, it must be a comparatively recent transmission from one race, Aryan, to another, non-Aryan, yet it is as thoroughly localized as folktale well could be. De New Han. Once dar wer a sawmill on de edge of a wood not a thousand mealy from here, with a branch a runnin' by 18 in de wheel. An old colored man, he kept a mill and wer a very fine kind of man. But he son Sam, what help him, didn't take arter de old man, but wer a triflin', no account sort o' young man, and de old man had to wook right sharp to get along. One day, long come a poor-looking sort o' man, sayin' he wanted to larn the sawmillin', and he wook for a yeah for nuffin'. The ol' man wer glad to get his help, and the young unload he could shift some o' his wook on to the new han. So the new han, he went to totten bodes and doin' chores round the mill. The ol' man he liked the new han fust class, and I'll lose gin he jes' as good as he get hisself. But the son he make hisself big to the new han behind the ol' man back, and order him roon to do dis and dat. The new han he never say nuffin, but jes' go long bout he own business. The ol' man he cotch Sam bizzin' and a bossin' the new han around, and he club he good fur hit more'n a few times. One day an ol' man come fur a load o' plank, and he wore a groanin' with the misery in the back, and a wishin' he were young and spry like as he used to. Den up speak the new han, and he say, "Ef you all go in the woods, 'ceptin' dis man and me, or you can't see nuffin goin' on, and wait till I holler, I'll fix dis man right up good, but you all muse promise not to peek, for suffin bad happen of yo do." So dey promise. And the ol' man and his son go in the woods where dey can't see nuffin. And the new han, he say to the man with the misery in he back, "Go lay down on the saw frame." Den he up with the saw, and cut he in two. Den he up with the two pieces of the man, and throw em into the branch, and the pieces jine to jitter, and the ol' man with the misery in he back come outer the branch a live and well man and quite young like and frisky. Den he fell a thankin' the new han, but he jest told he to shet up. And den he hollered. Sam and he fader come a runnin', and was mighty exprised when they seen the young-lookin' man in the place of the ol' limpin' man. But the new han wouldn't say nuffin 'bout it. So dey jest shet up, and things carried on same as usual till the ol' man he got word his mudder very bad, and he must start right off fur to see her. Befo he go he done tol' Sam not fur to ac obstropolis with the new han, case ef he did, so show would he get a clubbin' soon easy he got back. But Sam he forget jest so soon the ol' man gone, and behave wery overbearin' and obstropolis. Finally the new han say to Sam, "Ef you don quit behavin', I see gwine to leave when my yeah up, and dat's tomorrow." Den Sam ac real outishes, and told him, "Go along now, yo fool." Show enough next day the new han done gone, and no one seed him go, and no one pass he in the road or in the wood. Well, the wery next day, long come the man what was made young and likely by the new han, and long with him come he ol' woman totin' a basket wid a elegant fat possum and sweet taters dat fairly made Sam mouth water. After passin' the time o' day and so on, the man ax arter the new han, sayin' he want him fix up the ol' woman same like he do him. Sam say, "Oh, he be back tomorrow. Jes' leave the possum, and come agin. I'll gin it to him when he come." But the man too smart fur dat, and wouldn't leave hit. So Sam, 'fraid he gwine to lose the possum, so he say, "The new han done gone off fur to see he sick fader, and done tol me fo he go for to ax you and do same what he done to you." So den the man tol Sam, and Sam tell the man to go in the wood and shet he eyes. Den Sam he saw the ol' woman in two, and throw the pieces in the branch, but dar dey stay. Den Sam get skeered, and go down to the branch, and try to jine the pieces, but dey won't jine. And the ol' man's husband come a runnin' and a hollerin' outer the wood case he see suffin wrong. And the neighbors come, and dey take Sam and try he, and fin he guilty. And the judge he put on he black hat and say, "Hang Sam by the neck until he muse be quite dead, and the Lord have mussy on poor Sam." Den Sam's ol' fader come a runnin', and he fall down, and beg for Sam, but do he roll in the dust, and cry, the judge won let Sam go. Den dey all go way solemn like to the gallows. And the judge ax Sam, do he got anything to say for hisself? And Sam see the new han stand a laughin' in the crowd. And he think how bad he done treated the poor man. So he say, "Bridren and sistren, min, what I gwine tell you. Don ac high-minded and biggity with no one, case ef I hadn't ac dat way to a man in dis here very crowd, I'd a been heaven sologs instead o' gwine to be hung dis day." Den all he friends fall a cryin' and a rollin', but de new Han jump up longside Sam, and say quick like to he, do you sure enough sorry for you actions? Den Sam say, deed indeed I's sorry, and I ax pardon and hope you'll forgive me when I's gone. Den de new Han speak out big and loud to de crowd, and say, how come yo gwine to hang dis here man when de ol' oman he killed is a standin' right dar? Sho enough dar was she standin' long o' her ol' man. So dey let Sam down, and dey had great jollification, but dey never see de new Han from dat day to dis now har. John Bunyan. Folk tales are scarcely literature, but a question affecting the world's literature arises out of these gypsy folk tales. Was the author of The Pilgrim's Progress an English peasant or a gypsy half-breed? The Reverend J. Brown, in John Bunyan. His Life, Times, and Work, 1885, shows that the family of Bunyan, a name spelt in 34 different ways, was established in Bedfordshire as early at least as 1199. And that in 1327 a William Bownon was living at Elstow on the very spot where John Bunyan was born in 1628. There is a gap in the Bunyan annals between 1327 and 1542, when one finds a William Bonyan of Elstow, as in 1548 a Thomas Bonyan, aged 46 or more. Next come a Thomas Bunyan, petty chapman, who died in 1641, and his son, also Thomas Bunyan, 1603–76, who, says Mr. Brown, is usually spoken of as a tinker, but describes himself as a brazier. This second Thomas took for his second wife in 1627 an Elstow woman, Margaret Bentley, 1603–44, and John was the first child of that marriage. He, as everyone knows, was an itinerant though house-dwelling tinker, Brown, pages 64, 119, 158, etc. And his eldest son, John, was brought up to the ancestral trade of a brazier, and carried on business in Bedford till his death in 1728 foot, id pages 201–2. That is all of the essential to he gleaned about Bunyan's pedigree. We know nothing as to his grandmother or great-grandmother. With this evidence, then, before him, Canon Venables pronounced, in the Dictionary of National Biography, 7, 1886, p. 276, that the antiquity of the family in Bunyan's native county effectually disposes of the strange hallucination, which even Sir Walter Scott was disposed to favour, that the Bunyans, though reclaimed and settled, may have sprung from the gypsy tribe. By no means necessarily, as may be seen from a single example. During 1870–75 I often came across members of the Bunce family in Oxfordshire, Wilts, Herts, and Somerset. Stephen Bunce, of Wiltshire yeoman ancestry, had 30 years earlier married Phoebe Buckland, a thoroughbred gypsy woman, had himself turned tent dweller, and travelled the southern counties till his death. They had a largish family. And many, perhaps most, of their sons and daughters have married gypsies of more or less purity. One son was, and maybe is still, a small farmer and horse dealer, living in a house of his own at Pusey. Now, if a son or a grandson of his rose to eminence, he could not by Canon Venables' argument be a gypsy, because, forsooth, the Bunces are an old Wiltshire family. The chief upholder of Bunyan's gypsy ancestry was Mr. James Simpson, a Scoto-American of New York, the editor of Walter Simpson's History of the Gypsies, 1865, and author of John Bunyan and the Gypsies, 1882, and a whole host of similar pamphlets. He pointed out that Bunyan writes in his Grace Abounding, "For my descent, it was, as is well known to many, of a low and inconsiderable generation. My father's house being of that rank that is meanest and most despised of all the families of the land." And again, after I had been thus for some considerable time, another thought came into my mind, and that was, whether we were of the Israelites or no. For, finding in the Scriptures that they were once the peculiar people of God, thought I, if I were one of this race, my soul must needs be happy. Now, again, I found within me a great longing to be resolved about this question, but could not tell how I should. At last, I asked my father, who told me, no, we were not. And yet again, I often, when these temptations had been with force upon me, did compare myself to the case of such a child whom some gypsy hath by force took up in her arms, and is carrying from friend and country. Kidnapping has never been a gypsy practice, in gypsy tense, pages 244-46, nor, though it were, would a gypsy, even a converted gypsy, be likely to use it as an illustration. But Mr. Simpson's two first passages are really pertinent. The Anglo-Israelite craze was not devised till 1793, and it is hard to conceive why about 1645 an English peasant boy should have speculated on a Jewish origin for himself and his kindred. But with a gypsy it would not the least surprise me. I hardly ever see Frampton Boswell, an English gypsy of 50, but he returns to the question, and there's one thing, Mr. Groome, I've been wanting to ask you about, and that is where you think our people originated. Hindus, Jews, and Egyptians are regularly passed in review, but Frampton cannot make up his mind, as neither can he about Romany, except that, for certain, 'tisn't one of the 7 languages. Tinker in Bunyan's day indubitably carried a suggestion at least of gypsydom. I have not been able to see the Tinker of Turvey 145 or Canterbury Tales, London. 1630, edition by J. O. Halliwell, to which Mr. Brown refers, but from his few quotations on page 34 it seems evident that strolling tinker and brave metalman regarded himself as something widely different from an ordinary English artificer. Sir Thomas Overbury in his well-known Characters, 1614, describes the tinker, the companion of whose travels is some foul sunburnt queen, that since the terrible statute recanted gypsism and is turned pedlaress. So marches he all over England with his bag and baggage, etc. In an article by A. H. A. Hamilton on Quarter Sessions under Charles I, from Original Records of Devon, Fraser's Mag, Jan. 1877, is a quotation concerning sundry suspect persons, rogues both sturdy and begging vagrant, some whereof pretend to be petty chapmen, like Bunyan's grandfather, others pedlars, others glassmen, tinkers, others palmisters, fortune readers, Egyptians, and the like. Brazier is a frequent designation of gypsies at the present day. E.G. The Baptismal Register of Hill, Sutton Coldfield, as January 27, 1866, Miriam Kate Agnes, daughter of Benjamin and Mira Boswell, Cutler and Brazier. And that of Boothroyd, Dewsbury, has Mary Jane Dr. of Thomas and Mary Green, Dewsbury Moor, Brazier of the gypsy tribe. The occurrence in the Bunyan pedigree of such gypsy, Christian names as Mantis and Purin, Delarifa and Marilini, would be a strong point, but is entirely lacking. On the other hand, Gaugified, or Gentilese gypsies often drop such names. 2 brothers of my acquaintance, Odie and Lazzie, became thus plain William and George. A contemporary description of Bunyan, Brown, page 399, as tall of stature, strong-boned, though not corpulent, somewhat of a ruddy face, with sparkling eyes. His hair reddish, runs rather against the theory of Bunyan's gypsy ancestry, but not conclusively, for I have known 2 gypsy brothers, one very swarthy, the other red-haired. The strongest corroboration of that theory was unknown to both Mr. Simpson and Mr. Brown. In Notes and Queries for January 24, 1891, page 67, are cited an entry from the Parish Register of St. Mary's, Launceston, 1586, March the 8th day was christened Nicholas, son of James Bownia, an Egyptia rogue. Here Egyptia. Egyptia must stand for Egyptian, Bownia similarly should be Bownian, and, if so, we have veritable gypsy Bunyans. It may seem a far cry from Launceston in Cornwall to Elstow in Bedfordshire, where nomads not in case. In time, the interval between this baptism and the birth of the inspired tinker is but 42 years. But, anyhow, whether Bunyan was Gypsy 146 or Gentile. Folk tales, plus the Bible, seem to me quite as likely a source of inspiration for his Pilgrim's Progress and Holy War as, say, the 14th-century Pelerinage Home or the siege of the Anabaptists at Munster. I do not believe this has ever before been suggested, I will merely suggest it, and leave the working out of it to folklorists.